I'd say largely just let it go, probably at the U.S. request, to keep the negotiations alive for whatever. They weren't even coming to the table, and that was the thing that was attacking Israel directly, was Hezbollah. So there was really no talks to end it in the first place.
Yeah, I mean,
this is the first time Iran has
and then on top of that,
missiles
we've
at
negotiated,
Israel
what is it,
since
like
the
6 different
ceasefire
ceasefires at this
began
point
in
over the
early
past
April.
2 months. Every single one of them gets broken. And it's not always by the Iranian side. I mean, the Israelis broke 2 of the ceasefires that were made with Hezbollah on their own. I mean, there was literally no reason for them to do it. It's just that they said, we're going to enforce the ceasefire on our own time, or, you know, they're looking kind of a little scary up there, so we bombed them and broke the ceasefire. And then that got Hezbollah firing rockets, and then they'd agree to another ceasefire, and then Hezbollah would keep firing rockets because they'd say that, you know, the evil Zionists must pay, and then the Israelis would start bombing them again. And then in the midst of that all, the Iranians have a quote-unquote ceasefire between them and Israel and the United States, but then Iran is breaking that every day of the week by blowing up more commercial ships or trying to attack U.S. forces, and then we have to fire back defensively.
I just saw a
because we
report
fire back
that
defensively, they start larger attacks on the Gulf states, which we don't
Israel's
respond to at all.
said
We just let them attack the Gulf states and just watch what happens. And then they also were attacking U.S. forces as well. And it's just this absolute shit show. Like, it's unbelievable. You just think that at some point, you know, I feel like someone who has like a working brain with some sense would say, if they were in the position that a hypothetical president of the United States would be in right now, this whole thing's going nowhere, and this whole attempt at making a peace deal is becoming absolutely stupid. Maybe we ought to just restart the conflict and see how that goes. That's what I would be thinking at this point.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out, like, you know, putting aside all my frustration with the confusion that's coming out of the United States, I'm legitimately at a loss trying to figure out what the U.S. is trying to achieve here, because we know this for a fact. The U.S. wants to tamp down the tensions between Iran and Israel, and that they don't want the war to restart in its entirety under any circumstances. That's very clear at this point. The U.S. does not want the war to restart, even if Iran attacks the U.S. forces or the Israelis. They still want to say, just forget it, don't start anything, just sit down and be quiet to the Israelis. But I don't understand why that is, because it's like, what advantage does it give the United States to simply sit back and not take action? Because,
hold on
like
a
we said
second, guys.
before, we're still in very foul shape as the United States. The Strait of Hormuz is still not open. Iran still possesses their missiles. They also are still allegedly working toward a nuke, and now they have all the justification to work toward it because they've been attacked by the United States. So I don't understand why the U.S. is so desperately trying to protect this very fragile ceasefire, which really is no longer a ceasefire. It's more like a unilateral cessation of hostilities by the United States. I don't even understand what it should be as the end goal. I don't even get it.
I don't even know either. I have absolutely no clue at all what the end goal is at this point. Also, I see some people in the chat saying some stuff. You know, everyone always has a comment to say. I'm going to address a couple of them. Someone said, well, no, actually, Hezbollah is entirely to blame for this whole thing, because Israel's done absolutely nothing to try and escalate or stoke the flames of this whole situation. I don't know where some people have been living to where they say that Iran or Israel is entirely at fault for the whole thing and the other side is faultless, because we have to cover this as a job. Like, thanks to the amazing folks who support this channel, we have to cover this thing as a job every day, so we pay attention to everything. We don't watch like a TikTok headline and that's our only exposure for the day, like some people, you know, come in and argue that it's one thing or the other. We are watching the situation 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have watched the Israelis, because they're trying to stop the criminal prosecution of Netanyahu, twice go out of their way to bomb Hezbollah when nothing was going on, so that they could say, oh, you know, the Hezbollah looked kind of threatening, and although there is a ceasefire in place, they're looking like they're about to attack us, so we're going to bomb them right now to stop them from attacking us, and then that would break the ceasefire. Or then both sides would agree to another ceasefire again, and then Hezbollah would keep firing at Israel because they say we don't trust them and they're evil Zionists and whatnot, and then they would break the ceasefire. I mean, both sides, both Hezbollah and Israel, have broken the ceasefires between the two of them, like the 4 of them that have been done at this point, about equal odds. I mean, it's almost 2 times that Israel broke it, 2 times that Hezbollah broke it. That's just how it's been going. And then the Iranian ceasefire has been completely pointless because they've never stopped shooting once. They've cut down the amount that they're shooting, but they're still shooting, and that's not a ceasefire. So we're just dealing with this absolute stupid scenario at this point that keeps going on, where Israel does not want a ceasefire. Israel wants to keep fighting going in the region until the end of time. Iran wants to keep fighting Israel
Here
and
is a report
support
from
its proxies to
Iran's
keep fighting Israel until the end of time. So these both sides are absolutely adamant on wanting a war, and now we're stuck in the middle trying to act like both sides really don't
An
want a
Iranian
war, and there's a way to stop them from
tells,
warring.
uh,
That's
oh,
what
this
they
is from-
want. It's
they
like,
say this is
you know, in that kind of
Al-Mayed.
position, especially considering that we have our own interest involved in the region with
They say that an
I think
Iranian
it's pretty
source
clear and
told
obvious to me that
Al-Mayed
war is the only option that we have because of our strategic position and also the fact that trying to mediate and end the conflict isn't really working either. So we might as well just push the war to some sense and really get a success or a victory out of it instead of continuously pretending like anything's going to come out of a negotiated settlement when there is no chance in hell that ever will happen.
Yeah, I would say so. So I put up a poll to ask people about that because I'm genuinely at a loss to really understand why the U.S. is so desperate to prevent the war. Like, even with the options on the poll, I still don't truly understand why they're so desperate to prevent it. Even under these circumstances where Iran is clearly attacking our allies in the region. So, well, we'll see what people say on the poll, but in the meantime, though, we are hearing that apparently inside of District 18 in Tehran, Iran, we're getting new reports of jet activity over the skies there. And remember, we did hear explosions in Tehran. Apparently, it was some enemy drones that were shot down, maybe surveillance aircraft that were apparently shot down over Tehran for the looks of it. So right now, it feels like the calm before the storm. That's what it feels like to me. It feels like we have a momentary reprieve from the activities, but I would not expect that to hold up for too long. So we'll have to see.
Look at this AP.
And we'll definitely have to see. Right now, we are seeing a little bit of quiet, and maybe the
Israel says Iran launched missiles at
this is somehow
the
the
first such
again,
bombardment
which is going to be
during
insane if
fragile
it is,
ceasefire.
because then that means
And
that
then on the right,
anything
this
can
is a
happen in the
picture
Middle East, and it's just going to
at
be a
the
restarting
site
of the
where
conflict.
an
Like, you know,
Israeli
Iran
airstrike
could
in
nuke
the
some of
southern
those planes,
suburbs of
nothing would even happen.
Dahiyah.
So we'll see. We'll see eventually. But I see a lot of
Israel
people
said
talking
today
about
that Iran launched missiles added in the first such bombardment since the fragile ceasefire took effect in early April, further complicating
if it's clear that we can't get a peace with Iran because they're not
Iran
willing to
state
negotiate a good
broadcaster
faith,
from
and
launches
the Israeli
citing the
government
armed
is
forces
bloodlusted and wanting to
Israel
blow up
responds to
everybody in the
Iranian
region.
attacks.
I mean, we
Not
kind of
stop
have
its
our
attacks on
decision
Lebanon,
kind of set in
and
stone
Iranian
for us,
attacks will
because
continue.
if the Israelis are on our side, which they are, they're never going to let a peace deal come into being. And a peace deal with Iran right now would
The
be
latest
very
reporting I saw from Israel
disadvantageous
is
for the
they said
United
all
States, because
missiles
we're going to have to either
were
agree
shot
to their
down.
maximalist demands or we're not getting a deal. And they made that clear for the past 2 months. So
There
with
were
that in
no
mind, the
immediate
only option we
reports
have
of
is to continue the war,
damage
conclude the thing successfully, either with the overthrowing of the Islamic regime or at least at a minimum the breaking of the blockade and the Hormuz, and then end the conflict
As I
there.
mentioned,
Otherwise, we're
also,
never going to see an end to this thing,
The
and
New
we're
York
only going to
Times
keep
said
getting in
Israel's
a worse
firing record
position with each
service
passing
they were
month.
extinguishing
Now we
several
finally
fires
have
caused
some
by
breaking news
intercepted
coming out. So
fragments.
what do we got?
And MDA
Okay,
in
so we
Israel
have gotten
said
visual
several people were
confirmation
injured
on a
heading
video
for shelter.
showing that an Iranian ballistic missile
AP
did
also
make
said
impact in northern Israel.
that
So the statement earlier from the IDF claiming they shot everything down was
Israel,
false. Because we did see a
Iran
video
had
showing
warned
a
of
fire on the ground in
retaliation
northern
after
Israel, and
Israel
this appears to be
today
the moment of impact that
struck
we're seeing right here on
Beirut's
the video.
southern suburbs without
And here
warning,
is the clip.
in defiance
And
of Washington's
there's the
request days ago to stand down. Remember, Israel was saying it was going to strike
Thankfully, it didn't hit anything
Beirut
important from the
last
looks of it.
week,
I think it just hit that
and
hill that we saw earlier.
at the last
Yeah, it
minute,
looks like
President Trump
it looks
announced
like it
a
did.
ceasefire.
Actually, we don't know. It was over a hill.
Well, today,
Not really sure on that way.
Israel
Now that I'm thinking about that,
they
like,
didn't
you know,
strike
that air base
Beirut
could be over this
last
hill.
week,
Like,
but
we
they
just don't
struck
really
Beirut
know for certain. So we'll have to also, by the way, folks, Israel has some very significant restrictions on press.
So again,
If there was a
Iran had
hit on
warned
the
of
air base
retaliation
inside
after
of this
Israel
area
today
of
struck
the
Beirut's southern suburbs without
David Air
warning,
Force Base,
in defiance
we're probably
of
not going to hear
Washington's
about that until
request
satellite
days
photography
ago.
comes out to show.
Israel
So
called it
that might be in a day or
retaliation
two,
for
or it might be a
Hezbollah
couple of
firing
days
at
out
northern
for
Israel
that. We're just
earlier
not
in the
really
day.
sure, but
Israel's
that
attack on
looks to
Beirut
be
today came a
what
few
we
days
might be
after the
seeing
Lebanese
right now, or
and
this
Israeli
might have been a
governments
hit
agreed
closer
to
to Haifa,
ceasefire
but
and
there are
U.S.
definitely a
hosted
couple of
talks,
missile impacts.
though
in the northern Israel,
Hezbollah
that's for
rejected
sure.
the
So
deal.
it looks like the IDF claimed that they shot
The
everything down
strike
is
today
not true.
by
Although
Israel on a
something
residential building in Beirut killed 2 people.
Also, we got some more information here.
Lebanon's
I'll address
said.
for this first one before I
Iran
get to the
had
other
warned
story.
that an
We've
attack
gotten
on
some
Beirut
closure on what
would be a
happened to that
full-scale war
aircraft that crashed in Iraq. But we'll get to that in just a second, though. It turned out not to be a very big story, but we'll get to it in a second. But first of all, we are hearing that a senior Iranian official has stated this. He said, "We keep saying that the ceasefire must include all fronts in the region, especially Lebanon, and this is a condition that we will not give up on." And I want to point out the paradox with that. Like we said before, Hezbollah is not willing to agree to a ceasefire.
what is going to happen will happen.
On northern Israel. But yet, at the same time, Iran is demanding that Israel cannot attack Hezbollah while Hezbollah keeps launching rocket attacks on Israel. So that is clearly an impossible situation right there. So that pretty much brings the cultural snapshot to an end to the large degree. That literally doesn't make any sense coming from the Iranians. But unfortunately, before we get to our next story, what do you think of that?
I have to say, it's just stupidity as usual as we see.
Jaybird thinks Trump doesn't have a deal. How long have we been hearing this?
So our next one is about that
Iran
alleged
isn't
airplane
making a deal if
crash
it
that
benefits
is
the
taking
USA,
place inside of
that's
Iraq.
what Jaybird
It looks like
Thanks
it was
Sharon
a
Gosselin for being a
possibly
member.
Israeli
Griffin
drone that
Mancini
crashed in the Karbala
thinks
government
Israel
of central
brought this on
Iraq.
themselves.
It was
Thanks Griffin for
allegedly
your
down by
support. Thanks to
shoulder-fired missile for the looks of
Hey,
it.
thanks Stormy
So
Dude for
we
the
can see
membership.
here it
Stormy
appears
Dude
to be
gave
some
20
pretty
people
large
membership.
wreckage
That's really
from
nice.
allegedly an Israeli large drone.
Also, the cool
You see here the burning blaze on the ground.
Let's see if we have updates for you. Thanks, Hot Richard, for subscribing on Twitch. Guy from the 207 on Twitch who thinks Iran
What is this guy
just
doing? Trying to like
playing
jump around and
Trump.
see if he can fall in the fire?
I'm seeing it. I think he's trying to see if there's something salvaged. Like this guy's looking around like he's looking for some copper wiring. He's got like an objective here.
And also, by the way, it's like, what's Iraq doing
Faytux
shooting
News
down
says,
Israeli drones,
according
like
to
with
Channel
shoulder-fired
13,
man-pads? So what are they
Trump
doing?
and Netanyahu.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Also, really quickly, I saw a comment that really like tickled my fancy here. Someone just said in the chat
Yes,
box, and
N12
I got to
News
address
is also
this clearly, that because
So
they said
Israeli
Israelis spoke
media is reporting.
misinformation
I just saw this
about them shooting
from
down all
N12
missiles
News as
because
well.
they clearly did. We have proof to show otherwise. That we're trying to perpetuate some sort of an anti-Semitic notion of the lying Jews. If the military makes a statement, just to make this really clear, because this is how it works for everybody, all right? So the Israelis get no exception. If a military makes a statement and it ends up being untrue, we have a duty on air to declare that the statement is false. We have done that on CENTCOM endlessly. And nobody says that we're trying to push an anti-American agenda by saying that. We pointed out how many times the IRGC has lied. We pointed out how many times Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis have lied as well. And Israel gets no sparing or exception because they're Israel. We don't give Israel special privileges on the channel. Israel is treated like every other country. If they put out a false statement and they lie, it's going to be reported as a lie. And I don't know how in the world that can be taken as anti-Semitic when we have that same rule for everybody on the channel. So that's going to be the 2 cents that I have on that. I don't know why in the hell that would even be construed that way. And generally, it makes me feel like I have more of the need to declare when the Israelis put out misinformation, considering that for some reason some people act like pointing that out is now apparently wrong when we do that on every military group that we cover. So moving us on out of that news within southern Iraq, it does appear that the Iraq, honestly, man, I think that's kind of showing that the Iraqis are not working with the Israelis because they're shooting down an Israeli drone with a man-pad. Looks like the Iraqis are finally trying to deny their airspace for the Israelis to some extent, probably because of the fact that they set up those air bases in western Iraq without any Iraqi governmental
8 minutes
permission.
ago, Iranian state
Maybe so, possibly, but also we do have some more information right now that's just come out. Apparently, allegedly, the U.S. President and Netanyahu are currently on the phone right now. I don't have any anecdotal statements to report about how it's going or if the tone is bad or not. We don't know that
that is an
whatsoever, so
airport in-
we'll have to find out what they're saying on the phone a little bit later on. But we are hearing
few
that
minutes
apparently
ago,
after
news
this
was
phone call,
published
Netanyahu,
some
the defense
Telegram
minister Katz, and Israel
that an
security
explosion
leadership are set to
happened
hold an
at the
emergency discussion on Iran in the coming
But
hours.
Tasneem
So
says
I assume they'll be deciding what their
this was
response is going to be at that meeting. We're also hearing as well from the audio spokesman that they're saying this. They said, we struck Hezbollah in Beirut in response to non-stop strikes on northern Israel, which is also what I just went over a minute ago about that was the whole paradox of that situation, is Hezbollah will not agree to a ceasefire, and they keep launching attacks on Israel, and Israel simply responded to it by launching attacks in Beirut. So clearly, I mean, it's pretty obvious what the Iranians are trying to do here. They're trying to force Israel to attack in Beirut, so that way they have an excuse to launch more missiles in Israel. That's what they're trying to do here. So it's pretty obvious. That's why you're not going to have peace, because clearly the Iranians are trying to set up the Israelis to a large degree, which they've done. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would definitely agree with that. At this moment, I think folks were just waiting for what is going to be happening next. Are the Iranians going to continue more attacks against Israel? It doesn't seem likely, at least at the moment. And are the Israelis going to attack Iran? That seems highly likely. We just don't know when that's going to start. So in the meantime, while we wait for more news to come out on the situation here in the Middle East, I think we actually have enough of a breathing room at the moment to cover some of the more important points that we heard.
We're going to be taking comments from you guys.
A little bit of an update
what is going to happen
today, considering that this is going
to happen
the
here?
only show of the day for the
Will
most part, and to
Israel
explain quickly why. This show is definitely going to be running into prep time that's used to set up the nightly stream that we have scheduled every single day at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 days a week except for Mondays. And so for that reason, we're going to be having to cover all the news that we have from around the world kind of a little bit to be able to show you what's going on elsewhere in the middle of this breaking news stream. So getting us on up here really quickly to talk about what we have seen in this area. The Russians appear to be talking about the carnage that's now appearing on the front within the south because of the lack of supplies. According to some Russian military bloggers who have spoken about the situation in the southern front, there's a complete mess of corpses right now, and even without the corpses, I can somehow secretly film the road where we're taking people along. It's a complete mess there. Recently, a political officer's clerk was taken to a combat position for a mistake. He sat down and started crying because of the number of corpses. Activity is increasing every day. Evacuation teams don't even know how to get out the corpses and wounded, but I'm totally in shock about the last one. We, like our Supreme ones, will beat someone so hard they'll freak out. Bottom line, cars are burning near Seladovo. They simply can't get into Seladovo. Ural trucks are burning on the D-Day road. Drones are flying around Donetsk searching for soldiers, and we're just having losers. I saw in Seladovo how a wing flies in and FPV separates from it, and at that moment our FPV catches up to it in the rear. The war is getting worse and worse with each passing 6 months. So the report is now becoming desperate from the southern front. They're even saying that the bodies are piling up faster than they can even evacuate them, and they're really running out of ways to even remove the dead and wounded from the front line, meaning that the dead and wounded are generally stuck there where they were shot down on the field. We also have been able to additionally see that the Ukrainian armed forces have been attacking the bridges around the area of the Chandahar Gap, which we're able to see right here. The Chandahar Gap is a small bridge that enters the bottleneck in the northern part of the Crimean Peninsula, but it is an incredibly important road and railroad access point within this region, which you can see right here on the M18 highway. This bridge has been hit prior times, but has generally been left alone for a significant period, but it now appears that the Ukrainians are trying to sever the Crimean Peninsula physically from the rest of the land bridge by striking the Chandahar Gap Bridge and knocking it out. We've also been able to hear that there have been alleged attacks on the Kerch Bridge overnight, according to some Russian military bloggers, as they say that last morning the enemy attempted to launch a missile, an R-360 Neptune anti-ship missile at the Crimean Bridge. The Russian Air Defense Forces coast that the Crimean Bridge is still intact. So I don't know what they mean by the Russian Air Defense Forces coast, but it sounds like, according to the Russian military bloggers, there was an attempted attack on the Kerch Bridge overnight. Meanwhile, in the midst of the Crimean Peninsula, we've also been able to hear from other bloggers that
let's sneak up this time.
there is a very bad situation evolving with medical supplies. Our volunteers in one of the regions where there is currently a problem with fuel, means diesel and gasoline for the delivery and transportation of our medical supplies. At the moment, there is no possibility to deliver them due to the above reason. Whoever can help, we will be very grateful, and we're ready to buy them. And they said to write to Somanai Healer to be able to try and help out. So, from what we're understanding, medical supplies and the distribution of medicines are also grinding to a complete halt in Sebastopol now as well, once again because of the fuel situation, which has now led to a complete collapse of all supply lines, military and civil, within the entirety of the Crimean Peninsula. In the midst of this all, the Ukrainians did conduct more drone attacks against the Russian Federation. There is one ongoing while we're on air right now against Sebastopol and other places in the southern region. We have heard that fuel shortages are now reaching Krasnodar inside of the Russian mainland, and these fuel shortages now appear to be as dire as the ones that are actually happening in the occupied parts of Zaporizhzhia and Crimea. We can see here that a 1.6 kilometer long line has formed for one of the remaining gas stations that's open in the city of Krasnodar.
launching more strikes of their own.
Very bad that it's spreading to Krasnodar like that. It's really interesting that it's spreading beyond just
Doug
Crimea, it's spreading into
Robinson
the
thinks
Russian
Trump
mainland
thinks
like that.
Yeah, it's starting to spread quickly, and I think this is really working on the notion that we've been saying for a while that the fuel shortage is definitely worsening because Moscow and St. Petersburg are now also rationing, and the fuel supplies must be on the very precipice of running out for that to happen. And we're seeing that that's true. I mean, even across the Kerch Strait in the Russian mainland, where transportation of supplies and fuel is a lot easier, they're just physically not getting enough fuel to ship out to most regions of Russia, and the fuel shortages are continuing to worsen. We'd also see another clip here in the middle of the night in Krasnodar as they are once again lining up trying to get fuel because there's hardly any left, especially in these areas of Russia. We see them here showing the cost.
And the man called Pete. He's a mad agent.
Dang. 3,242 rubles, that is, to refuel the tank. That's like $35 for like 40 liters, at least from what they were showing on that. Outside of that, we've also been able to additionally see that the fire at loopDloop is still going on. Satellite photography came out today showing the smoke plume coming from the oil storage tanks at loopDloop, and we can see the fire raging once again over the whole of the city, and the smoke cloud
There was a statement from the
floating on
Israeli
over the whole
military,
area.
but
We've also
did
been able to
not
see as well outside of
explicitly say that they would
the
strike back
area
now Iran.
that because of all these attacks, Russia is now
Statement from
improving
the
the
Israeli
defenses
military
around
said they
Putin's
were
private residence at Moldai, and now they're adding anti-drone nets in the
Also,
area.
there could be more.
This is that greed they spoke about in the Bible, I think, at this point. The entire country of Russia can't even defend itself, but yet, not only does Putin's mansions have like a complete horde of missile-based defenses around it, but now they're taking the few nets that they have available, and they're also putting that around his mansions. That dude is just a greedy bastard.
He said, man, these attacks on like St. Petersburg are rough. Let's add a couple of more air defenses around my house and a couple of drone nets as well. I was like, dang, man, it's like, this guy just has his priorities all wrong. You know, it's like, even more interesting, it's like, if there's no money being made in Russia economically, his quality of life can't stay this good for that long. I mean, like, things are clearly going to be getting worse, even for the upper echelons in Russia. They're going to start living like the upper echelons in North Korea, which live like middle-class Americans at the best-case scenario. We also were able to see as well that elsewhere outside of the Russian Federation, we have been able to get some more developments on the situation pertaining to the Chinese policing situation happening around Taiwanese waters, as the Taiwanese Coast Guard did intercept a communist Chinese Coast Guard vessel today near to, I believe it's Dongsha Island, if I'm correct. Yeah, it actually is Dongsha Island. So here's that clip.
Netanyahu and Trump are talking now.
This is Taiwan's water. This is not your water. You don't belong here.
He's pretty correct.
He's going on.
Man, he said, China Coast Guard, you do not belong. You go.
I'm sorry, by the way. I support Taiwan all the way, by the way, but I'm not gonna lie. Like, I can't hold a straight face on that. I can't. That dude was losing, man. He had some revolutionary fuel behind that voice.
Fox News says President Trump told them, I believe it was Reagan, he said,
I gotta say, man, that dude, he's ready to go. I tell you what, he woke up ready for violence this morning.
This guy wakes up and he salutes the flag of Taiwan in his bedroom every morning, and when he brushes his teeth, he sings the anthem of the ROC. Like, this guy is dedicated. He said, "This is Taiwan water. You do not belong." I was like, damn, bro, he's going off. Like, he's got some passion for this.
I love that, honestly, man. You gotta appreciate when the Taiwanese are protecting their stuff like
He said,
this.
we're very close. I would say
I gotta say it one more time.
Let's listen to the whole thing one more time, because it was a treat. So here it is again.
And then he said about Iran, you shot your missiles, that's enough, get back to the table and make a deal. Trump also said he was not happy about the Israeli strikes on Beirut today.
He said, you don't belong here. Iran's even cracking like halfway through.
Said Trump told him.
Oh my God, honestly, like, oh man.
The Iranian strikes
didn't hurt
anybody.
close to Taiwan's waters
Hopefully
like
Israel
that.
is not going to retaliate. If Bibi strikes them back, it's just going to keep them
They might be like, China Coast Guard, we will blow your ass off, bro. It's like, damn, it's like all down
we are very close to
but
a
the Chinese Coast Guard, the Taiwanese Coast Guard, the Republican Chinese Coast Guard,
I don't want it
which
to
is the
blow up
correct name
because
for
of
it,
what is
they put
happening
out a statement
now.
today
I'm
about
going
these
to call
incidents
Putin
around
right
the
now
area.
and
So,
tell him not to retaliate.
here is
Each
the
of them have their
Taiwan's
funds.
Coast Guard
Israel
administration
had
condemned
its strike
China's
and Iran had
announced
its
special
strike. We
maritime
don't need
traffic
another.
law enforcement operation east of Taiwan, saying Beijing has no sovereign rights in the area and that the action violates international law. The China Coast Guard said it detected 4 Chinese vessels,
Those are some
Haicheng
quotes
6,
of what Trump
Haicheng
is
8, Haicheng 9, and Donghaizhou 113, departing shipment towards waters southwest of Taiwan, but none enter Taiwan's restricted waters. Taiwan dispatched 5 patrol vessels to monitor the activity and framed the operation as part of Beijing's broader gray zone pressure campaign aimed at asserting false jurisdiction around Taiwan and increasing low-level coercion efforts within the area. But moving us on out of this news, luckily enough, we just covered all of it, actually.
Security alert for
right now.
Israel.
So what do we got?
U.S. Embassy, Jerusalem.
Okay, so we got a big story happening
As
right
a result
now.
of the
Apparently,
current
it looks like
security
Israel might have
situation
launched
in
more heavy strikes on Hezbollah inside Lebanon at this very moment. It appears to me that is the case.
The U.S.
So,
Embassy
if this is true
has
right
directed
here,
all
that could
U.S.
be
government
prompting another
employees
Iranian
and
missile
their
attack on
family
Israel
members
pretty
to
shortly.
shelter in place.
It's not really saying
and be
where this
prepared to
is. I can't tell if this is the
protect
suburbs of
shelter in the event
Beirut
of a
or
red
not. I
alert
really can't
until
tell. We
further
don't have a
notice.
geolocation on it right now. But this is apparently showing
The
this
U.S. Embassy,
that we're seeing
Jerusalem,
right here.
Embassy
So,
branch office
can you tell where this is? I can't really tell.
Closed tomorrow.
You know, Chief,
In
It's
the event
somewhere
of,
in
actually, it's now today. Monday,
Yeah.
June 8th is now
Oh man,
back.
I got you off guard there. Like, you're like, oh, yeah. I don't know where it is.
In the event of missile, rocket fire, or hostile aircraft
cities look
red
basically
alerts
the
on
same.
may be
Like, it's very
activated
hard to
by
tell them
local
apart.
authorities.
So this could be
And the
anywhere.
Israeli
This
Home
could
Front
be in the city like
and
Baalbek.
shelter.
This could be down in Nabatea. This could be Tyre. This could be anywhere. It might be Beirut. But I'm not entirely sure though. I don't know. But it is definitely, without a doubt, in Lebanon.
this safety belt will
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like it's in Lebanon. I'm just not sure. As I see some people saying it looks like Beirut, but the catch is, though, it's really hard to tell. Like, from this point right here, it's very hard to tell. So, I just don't know yet, but it is an attack on Hezbollah, though. So that could prompt another Iranian attack. It could be that we see Iran attack again before Israel launches its retaliation. That could be what happens.
It could be, and that could also be the case as well. So there are ongoing strikes by the Israelis in in Lebanon somewhere right now. We don't know exactly where, but we'll be watching that with great interest, because depending on where those strikes were, we might be getting an idea of what's going to be happening next. Because, you know, the president might have gotten on the phone and gone, "Maybe you don't bomb the Iranians, don't do it." And then he said, "Oh, of course I won't." And then he called up the IDF and said, "Go ahead and bomb Beirut again." Like, so, you know, that way they don't bomb Tehran, but they still get the same thing out of what they were looking for. You know, that could have been the case. The Israelis, they seem to be doing that a lot recently, so, you know, we'll have to see. But anyways, outside of that, I hope that does address that the best we can based on what we have right now. But with that, that is generally all of the world news that we had for the day outside of Iran that we had. Go ahead.
Also, by the way, I wasn't able to see it. I was too busy with all my other tasks I usually do during the stream. But did you show that video of Ursula Beans where that person was looking out their apartment window and like a fire was raging outside of it?
Oh no, I actually didn't put that one down on the map because I was trying to get on air. We didn't have enough time, so I only put the one of the satellite.
Also, by the way, just so y'all know what I'm talking about, by the way, Ursula Beans was hit by Ukraine about, I think it was like 24 hours ago, and it was a serious hit, like a very big hit on an oil depot there in that area. And apparently, some Russian from their apartment building apparently filmed this massive inferno outside of it. This is literally from their apartment right here. Let's take a look. This is the oil depot that caught fire.
Oh, they got that music. Wow.
I thought it was somebody moaning in the background.
Hold on a moment.
I was like, I didn't know this was going on, but that's serious, though. I mean, that's right. I would hate to see that outside my window. I'd probably leave.
But
I feel like the property values are decreasing.
Yeah, I think so.
I also wonder, is this going to affect the heating bill?
Probably, yeah.
Probably. Well, I don't want to talk to Lee. I don't want to probably
Roy
Lee,
Case says
but
there
I
are
want to know,
Israeli
like, would it
strikes
affect
in southern Lebanon.
Man,
That's
maybe,
not
though. We do have some more
new. I
breaking
mean,
news
that's
outside of
been
this,
going
though.
on for
That
weeks and
apparently the
So
U.S.
that's
Embassy
not
in Jerusalem has
something-
directed all U.S. government employees and their families to shelter in
It's something
place
that
and be prepared to move to
Iran
a
is
protected
attacking,
shelter
but we've
in the
been
event of a
seeing
red
Israeli
alert until
strikes
further
in southern
notice.
Lebanon
So it appears to be that even though the U.S. is saying
Beirut
that Israel
strikes
shouldn't
was
respond,
different.
it looks like
That
the
was
embassy is
something
getting ready
Iran
for
had
some
said they
sort
did
of
not want.
provocation that could end up striking the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. So that is quite a serious note as well. So we haven't really heard anything else from the Israelis or the Iranians right now, except for they are taking a lot of measures preparing for something to happen. We just haven't seen any more statements coming out. So that appears to be all we know at the moment.
Very interesting, but it does show that the U.S. is getting ready for further situations to unfold within the region, showing that the United States right now is preparing for the worst, which generally is always done as a precaution. So it's not a guarantee of anything coming around the corner, by the way, for everyone that's watching right now. It's just that the U.S. is getting ready for the worst to come. So we'll have to wait to see what that is exactly.
Airport
but outside of that, it looks like we're still waiting for more news to come out at a faster rate. We've already covered most of everything else that we had in the rest of the world today to cover before we came on air. So with that in mind, we're going to be getting back into a couple of questions for now. So what do we got, Matthew?
Alright, so our next super chat in the meantime, while we're waiting on more breaking news, is going to go to Paladin Cards. And thank you very much, Paladin Cards, for the generous $100 super chat, and we do appreciate that very much. And they said, I love the content, and get some coffee on us.
Flights there.
And I gotta say, a humongous thanks to you for the incredible support, Paladin Card, and loving the content. I gotta say that's an incredible and amazing thing to say that folks like you support this channel and help this thing keep on running. And I gotta say that it's a wonderful thing to know that you're helping us to keep the lights on, to keep paying the bills, and to keep covering this news each and every single day. And I gotta say, humongous thanks to you so much once again.
That's the largest airport in Iran.
Incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
I just saw that.
We also have here a $50 support from
now, I
Angel
think
Glodo.
there's a
Thank you very much, Angel, for that $50 support. I don't think there was a comment attached to it. I'll just double check real quick.
But this is
I don't
just
think
coming
so,
out right now.
but we do appreciate it nonetheless. And of course, that does help me get the channel running
Air
with
News
that
says
support. And
the
of
Civil
course, what say
Aviation
you?
Organization
I gotta say, humongous thanks to you for supporting Angel Glodo and helping this channel keep on running. If you didn't throw in a comment, but the support is greatly appreciated because it helps us keep this thing rolling. We run ad-free, sponsor-free streams every single day of the week, 6 days a week. And I gotta say that it's an entire honor and a pleasure for folks like you to enjoy this channel enough to support it, because we get to cover the news to all of y'all and are able to do it because folks like you help us make this a full-time job. So a huge thanks to you once again. And with that, we're on the next one.
And our next super chat here is going to be a $50 support, or actually a $22 support from Bruce Jenna Tolles. Thank you very much for that support, by the way. It said, fellow war nerds, this is the big one. And honestly, it is the big one. This was the one that we were actually mentioning last night. We said we'll go live on a breaking war news stream if we see Israel get attacked, and that's what happened today. So, pretty serious situation to say the least, and we are expecting it to escalate beyond what we're seeing right now. So I would agree. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree. This is the big one. Like, we actually got off of air after that, and we were like, okay, let's lay out what would actually be a big thing if explosions north of Shiraz happen, if the Iranians attack Israel, if any of these things happen. We're definitely going live because that would be breaking news. But we also agree that if it was another small attack like the one we had gotten done that day, we weren't going to cover it because it's just not important enough. But then this one happened, so we had to go live because we have no other choice. So
Airport in Iran.
I hope that does address that the best I can, and a big thanks to you for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And also, Matthew, I see you're trying to ask, what's going on? Like, someone who's been around for a minute said, because we said something about the Israelis that wasn't entirely positive, like they broke the ceasefire once or twice with Hezbollah over the 6 times there's been, that now that clearly means that we support Hezbollah. And I said, when the hell did that ever happen, and when did we say that? Which was my question to him, and that's what people are talking about right now in the chat. Because saying that the Israelis are an imperfect ally that has a decent amount of issues and they don't really follow along with our strategic plays in the region, they kind of do what they want, is a far cry from
and I have a statement from the Iranian Foreign Ministry.
Hamas, which is a pretty insane sort of a mental leap to make. But anyways, with that, we're on the next one.
Regarding
also, by the way, folks, we have a lot of new people here on the breaking news stream right now. If you want to, and you already haven't, go ahead and subscribe. We are, I think, less than 700 subscribers away from hitting 600,000 right now. So very, very close to that big 600 number. That's been coming around the corner for quite some time.
Iran
Actually,
says
it's been quite a
following
slog to
repeated
get there. But
violation
if you want to subscribe and get notified, feel free to go ahead and smack that button. But moving on to our next one here, while we're waiting on more breaking news, this one goes to Jose Diaz, who puts in a $20 support
U.S.
Thank you very much,
terrorist
Jose,
army
for the
in the
support
attack
once
last 2
again.
weeks
We also have a
on
20 from
Iranian
Joyce
ships.
Morris,
Sorry,
who also
on
turned
Iranian
20. And we
ships.
appreciate the both of you very, very much for that support and helping
me a
get the channel running. And
Give
of course,
me a
what say you?
Now this-
I gotta say a big thanks to both of y'all for the support, Jose Diaz and Joyce Morris, because y'all's support is helping this thing to keep on running. I've got to say that we're entirely honored
Let me
and
get the statement.
supremely appreciative of y'all's support, because it makes this entire thing possible. It helps us to keep this thing rolling, helps us to stay on air, and it helps us to pay our bills behind the scenes. So we can dedicate our entire lives, 24 hours a day, 7 days a
Now I
week,
can see
to the news coverage.
Let's
of
get
what's
this on-
going around
let's get the
world.
statement
And
for
we're
you
greatly
again.
appreciative of that once again today, like every other day. So humongous thanks to you all so much once again for y'all's incredible support, because y'all are making the channel possible for everybody who's here right now.
Iran's foreign
and also want
ministry
to make it
says,
clear to all of our
following
new
the
viewers who are here,
repeated violations
you do
of the
not have to
ceasefire.
support the
Oh, hold
channel
on a
if you
second.
do not want to.
I wanna
The
make
channel
sure I
is
have
free
an
to play, like you do
the
not have to
IDF.
pay to have a
IDF
question answered.
says-
It's just that we make sure to address all the super
Oh,
chatters first, because
the
they're the ones who
IDF
support the channel
says-
and help us to
statement
make our
from
bread
the
and butter
IDF,
on the show to pay our bills,
The
to keep our
IDF
lights
will
on,
strike
and to keep
the
doing this
enemy
as
with
our job, and be able to
determination
run the
as
show
soon
at all.
as
So,
the order is
I hope
given.
that make sure to get that out of the way, just in case some people are wondering. But the super chatters are the ones who make the entire
New
show possible
statement
for
from
everybody,
the
and we're greatly
IDF.
appreciative to them. And so a huge thanks to you all once again, and we're on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to none other than my trucking travels, who puts in a 20. And thank you, good sir, as well for that support. He said, "Holy cow, you're on super early." And I got to rewind the stream.
from
Thanks,
the
guys, for
IDF.
everything. And sitting broke down in Salt Lake City.
Really? That's
the
crazy.
The
You're actually
IDF
close
Chief of
nearby
General
then,
Staff
because
is
we're
currently
also in
conducting
the Salt Lake
a
City
situational
area as
assessment
well.
with the General
And I
Staff
gotta
Forum
say, hopefully the breakdown
and
gets fixed
they will
there.
strike
We
the
did come
enemy
on
with
extremely
determination
early. I
as
actually
soon
didn't
as
expect
the
this to
order
happen.
is
Matthew
given.
called me like a couple of minutes. Well, he called me a while before the show started. He was like, "I think that Israel is about to get bombed by Iran," and I was like, "That's crazy."
That doesn't say they definitely will. They say
get
as
everything
soon as
ready
the
just
order
in
is
case
given.
if it happens. I was like, "Okay, sure." So I get off the phone call, and he calls me 2 minutes later. He's like, "Yeah, they're attacking Israel right now." I was like, "Right now?" I was like, "Right now?" I was like, I didn't even have time to prepare. I was literally still trying to get to preparing and just getting the computer on even. And so then we had to go live. So, I mean, kind of a really
So,
crazy
just
early
note
sort of
that
start.
doesn't-
We rarely ever get
that
these
doesn't
these
say
days, but
they
I hope people have been
definitely
enjoying
will.
it. So,
It
huge
says they
thanks to
will
you for
strike the
support, and I
enemy
hope
with
it does address that well. And we actually have
as
more
soon
breaking
as the
news coming
order
out
is
right
given.
now.
Okay, so we have a lot of breaking news coming out right now, so we're going to have to break from our Super Chat segment here and get back into all of our big breaking news. So I'm going to try to cover these one at a time because it's a lot of big headlines coming out right this second. It seems like this will be the pretty much theme of the night at this point, or the theme of the evening. We're going to get huge waves of breaking news, then we'll probably have a lull, we'll get back to our Super Chats, and then we'll get back to our breaking news. It appears to be the way it's going to go pretty much all day. So we're currently seeing that flights at Imam Airport in Tehran apparently have been suspended until further notice. That's a brand new airport closure inside of Iran that we're hearing about. We're also hearing that all airports in the western Tehran flight zone are going to be closed until 2300 Tehran time on June the 8th, which is tomorrow, which seems to coincide with a potential Israeli response that could be coming very soon. We're also hearing as well, in addition to that apparently Iran is reporting that there's currently evacuations underway at the Mehrabad and Imam Khomeini airports inside of Tehran. They are currently evacuating the Iranian airports in the capital city of Tehran at this very moment. We are seeing that apparently a number of flights have been leaving, some of them with the transponders off, and some of them with their transponders on. So they are expecting that Mehrabad, which is generally a pretty hot target for the U.S. forces and Israeli forces, they're expecting it to get hit again by the West. So that appears to be a pretty big development. We're also hearing as well that apparently the Rafah and Kerem Shalom crossings inside of Israel have been closed until further notice following Iran's missile attack. We're also hearing on another front that a U.S. official is telling Axios that they are not a part of this current situation between Iran and Israel, and it remains unclear if the U.S. president is going to block U.S. military support for an Israeli strike on Iran, including air refueling and coordination. So it sounds like the U.S. might be considering actually not assisting Israel in any type of offensive strike. Also, we do have an update about the aircraft crash, or the drone crash inside of Iraq. It appears to be it was a U.S. drone that got shot down by
According to
It
N12
appears to be a U.S. Air Force MQ-9 Reaper or an MQ-1C. We do see here that it appears to be a General Atomic sticker on the side of that aircraft right here. If this is indeed the photo corroborating that, it appears to be it could be the case. It appears to be the antenna assembly on the drone.
That is very interesting. It actually does appear that it was not a Hermes 900, which was what was originally reported. It actually appears that it was American MQ-9 or an MQ-1, which is even more interesting because now that begs the question why that was taken down over Iraq.
According
I would say so. But what do you make of that evacuation from the Tehran airports? That seems to be a pretty big indication that something's about to happen. I know I keep saying that like a broken record, but there's a lot of things stacking up that are indicators that even Tehran knows that a response is imminent at this point.
I would say it definitely is showing that. It's also the fact that they're trying to evacuate the place because, I mean, if anything, Israel and the U.S. have blew the hell out of Mehrabad and Khomeini Airport further south throughout the armed conflict continuously because the Iranian Air Force operates out of both airfields. So I think that's the reason why they're evacuating those airports, if those reports are true, is because they're trying to get people out of the areas of possible military targets that are about to get hit by the Israelis here in the near future.
Yeah, it seems like it to me as well. Also, I haven't really gotten an update about the Hezbollah attack. You know, there was that attack on Hezbollah that Israel apparently just launched like about 10 minutes ago. It looks like it might have been very limited to a certain degree. Might have been just enough to get Iran to actually respond.
So again, they have apparently they're calling.
If I was Israel right now, let's do a hypothetical for a second. If you're Israel and the U.S. president's calling you up and saying, don't respond to that or else, if you wanted to provoke a response, what would you do? You would hit Hezbollah again, because you know that would provoke Iran to launch more missiles, and that would make it a lot harder for the U.S. to then say, don't respond. Because if Israel gets hit a second or a third time, then at some point the U.S. has to say, well, you got to do what you got to do, we'll help you out. So that could be what Israel's going for at this point. They're trying to basically force
By the way,
which at this point, I don't blame them, to be completely honest with folks.
Well, I mean, with the weak U.S. response we've seen so far, I guess it's trying to find any way to try and get the ball rolling, kind of, because I think I'm saying the U.S. response was ridiculous.
Had posted this a
It was
couple hours
unbelievable. I can't even believe that's what they're working off of right now. An actual legitimate attack happened again on Israel. Clearly a violation of the ceasefire by every means. And yet the U.S. is still taking the position it's taking right now. It's absolutely insane. But at the moment, a lot of people are actually talking about why the U.S. position is that way. Speaking of that sort of a situation, why is the U.S. so desperate to prevent the war with Iran from restarting? And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so we'll address the poll real quick, and then we have some more footage that's come out and breaking news as well. It looks like it's coming in at a fast rate at this point. It's starting to pick back up. But to address the poll it's currently running, to repeat the question, why is the U.S. so desperate to
let me get back to the statement
from restarting? It looks like 50% said it's about political concerns for U.S. domestic elections, while 90% said it's about legal concerns about the War Powers Act here in the United States. 18% said the U.S. military is running low on ammo, and 13% said Iran might have a working nuke, and that's brought the U.S. operation to a complete halt. So if Iran had a nuke, they wouldn't fire it at the United States, they fire it at Israel. So Israel appears to be not restrained whatsoever. They want to attack Iran and respond. So if Iran had a nuke, I doubt Israel would be that gung-ho about responding to it. So I don't think they have a nuke. Also, we've already heard that the U.S. military is running low on precision-guided munitions, but we still have a whole bunch of dumb bombs and all kinds of other stuff. Like, there's still a whole bunch of other stuff in the arsenal, so that's okay.
Statement by the Ministry of Foreign
Affairs. I think it could be the 50%. I think it might be political concerns, possibly, but I think they're miscalculating. I think it's going to be a lot worse politically if they let the situation fester and the Strait of Hormuz remain closed. That's going to cost them the election a lot more than simply taking action right now. So I'm not sure if they're getting good advice on that. But if we're serious, what say you?
I would have to say that I don't think they're getting any good advice if that is the case right now. But we'll have to eventually wait and see how all those stories develop. In the meantime, we also have footage of the Iranians firing ballistic missiles towards Israel. Apparently, this must have been developed explosive around the Tehran area toward the Khuzestan province. Here's some footage of that really quickly before
several
we get
military
further.
targets over the north of the occupied Palestinian territory, northern Israel. on Sunday
that's the whole point, right?
within the framework of
That's the end of that clip right
right
there,
of
but still showing you some of the
self-defense
Iranian launches
in
that are being
accordance with
conducted.
Article 51 of the
Yeah,
UN
look at how dispersed their missile launchers
Iran
were. Like, that's kind of
emphasizes
surprising, actually.
the
I'm
Iranian
putting it in the
nation's
likes app right now.
strong
Conflict
determination
Radar put out a
to
pretty good
decisively
post here
defend
showing all the
its
different
security and
launch
national
sites
interests
of
at
the
any
Iranian
point it deems
missiles.
appropriate.
It was
Recalls
very
that the ceasefire in
dispersed.
Lebanon
And also
was an
turn the
integral
lights
part of
down,
the
but
ceasefire
it's very
understanding from
dispersed.
April 10th,
These
and
launch
that the
sites
U.S.
outside of
government
Iran.
bears direct
We see
responsibility
here that
for
it
the
was
violations of the
scattered across the
ceasefire by
entire
Israel
western portion
and
of
the
Iran. We saw
consequences thereof,
Karaj,
as
Tabriz,
well as any
Urmia,
increasing
Kermanshah,
tension in the
Kashan,
region.
Isfahan,
Iran
and
warns
Qom.
that any
They were all
evil
launching
adventure by the
missiles,
Israeli regime against
which
once you start to delve underneath the surface, that's when you realise this whole world is not so simple, and you start to notice who people really are and the games they're playing, and that fake confidence, all the ulterior motives. And you realise this whole society is built on lies, and people, they're sheep. And once you see that, you can't unsee that. So you try and tell people, but they say to you, no, you're overreacting, you are crazy. So you stop talking, but you're still observant, you're still watching, but you know you don't belong anymore. And it's not because you think you're too good for anyone. No, it's because you've seen too much and you're watching everything, and now you know you can't go back to how it was anymore. The truest words was from Nietzsche when he
Was just checking out that Envoy, the team boxing league. That's actually kind of neat. And I don't condone, the blows to the head, I know, but I mean, it's... You weigh the odds, I guess. Yeah. No, that's kind of neat. Oh, we're just watching it. On Envoy TV, on his cable, it was channel 145.
And apparently, the phone call between the president and old Netanyahu is
Israel's going to,
Andy, what do we
we'll see
got
what
there?
happens.
So we are hearing that the phone call between the U.S. president and Netanyahu lasted
Donna Simmons, our
24
viewer,
minutes.
says,
I'm not
why
entirely
was
sure if
Israel
that's indicating a
bombing
bad
Beirut
phone
today?
call or a
Because,
good one.
Israel
it seems to be a kind
launched
of a short
attacks
phone
on
call
what it
from the looks
said
of it.
were
So it
Hezbollah
might have been
targets in
a more
Beirut
heated
in
one
response
possibly,
to
although it's hard to
attacks
tell
from
from that kind of
Hezbollah
like a
on
length on a
Israel.
phone call. Now, if it was like 5 minutes, I would say that's a bad sign. But 24 minutes, it's kind of hard to tell what they were saying on the call. But it has officially come to an
This
end
is what Israel
as
said
of 5
earlier
minutes
today.
ago. So we're waiting to see what was said there, but it could have been some more
They
strong
said,
language exchange between the two.
a
Because
Hezbollah command
Netanyahu
center
believes
in
it's
the
time to go back to
area of
war,
Beirut
and the U.S.
struck
president believes that a deal is
Hezbollah's
right around the
rocket
corner
attacks on northern
after a
Israeli
month of
communities.
dead-end
The
talks to a
targeted
large
command center was
degree.
used by Hezbollah
So
terrorists
that's
to
where
advance
they stand
terror
on
attacks
it.
against
We've also got some
civilians and
footage
IDF
as well
soldiers
of
operating in
apparently an
southern
Iranian missile booster that fell near the town of Tops in southern Syria, in the western countryside of Daraa. So let's take a look at this. Apparently an Iranian missile was found on the ground.
This is the most cartoon-looking rocket I've ever seen.
وكالة صناعة اليوم الصبح.
It looks like a rocket. It looks like a rocket booster for sure. I gotta say, folks, it's kind of blowing my mind how cartoonish this looks. This looks fake, honestly. Like it's like a prop for children or something like that.
Yeah, that explains why they closed their airspace as well, because there's clearly stuff falling in Syria's airspace. So we're also getting some more news that the U.S. Embassy in Israel has issued a more lengthy security alert. It looks like, here's what it says. It says, and once again, this is coming from the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, Israel. It said security alert. As a result of this current security situation in Israel, including home front command alerts for multiple regions, the U.S. Embassy has directed all U.S. government employees and their family to shelter in place and be prepared to move to protected shelters shelters in the event of a red alert until further notice. So that also indicates, like we've been saying, that something appears to be coming very soon, or they would not be issuing that warning for the future. That's, of course, that warning is for the future hours of possible attacks that could be about to happen. So, once again, very hot activity out here. So I call them Little Caesars, I'm like hot and ready at this point. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd say it looks like everybody's getting ready for some action. It looks like the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem is going to be working from remote locations, aka home. So sounds to me like somebody's getting ready for some action because they're telling everybody to not come up to the embassy. That also is giving us an idea they must believe that the embassy has a chance of being attacked in the future.
You remember they said if Israel responds to Iran by launching a counterattack, then Iran said they would strike the region as well. So that's probably why they're saying that.
Probably, yeah, because then again they did hit a lot of embassies back in the day, like the one in Riyadh and whatnot. We apparently have even more breaking news coming out right now. So what do we got?
So we are getting some reports of explosions that have just broken out in Iraq's Kurdistan region, which has been a hotbed of rain and strikes over the last few days, by the way. So it sounds very possible that maybe Iran is launching strikes into Kurdistan and Iraq right now, and that appears to be likely the case that we're hearing about.
Our natural resources gave me purpose. Now all that is under attack by corrupt politicians who are selling us out to corporations and billionaires. I'm Grand Platter, and I don't take $1 of corporate money. I approve this message because I won't turn my back on the home that never turns back on me.
Welcome back to Tuesday TV. And
They're outposts in Sulaymaniyah. I think
I
most
don't
of
know
ours
if
are in
that's some
Erbil.
kind of-
And I think
Again,
there
there's been strikes
right
going
now, but not a whole lot of them.
recent months in
So
Iraq.
I think that's probably more so directed against the Kurds again. Very interesting. In the midst of all this, the Kurds are getting attacked. But with that, I hope that does address that well, folks, because that's all the news that we have coming out right now.
Sulaymaniyah is a Kurdish city.
But in the meantime, we are going to be getting on to some more questions.
A major
So what do we
Kurdish
got?
city. So Iran
So
says
jumping
that
back to our super chat where we still keep an eye out for breaking news. Our next one here is going to go to none other than Walter Philippad. And thank you very much, Walter, for that massive $200 support, by the way. And supporting the channel and such big ways with that support. We do appreciate that because, as we say, almost like a broken record, it is that support that keeps our channel running and keeps us on the air to keep reporting this breaking news day in and day out. So we do appreciate it very much, Walter. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, a humongous thanks to you for support, Walter, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. You didn't throw in a comment, but your support is helping us to save millions of comments on air. It's helping us to keep our lights on, to pay our bills, to keep eating, to keep living. And I gotta say, folks, I love you. But I gotta say, humongous thanks to you so much once again for that incredible support and helping this channel to keep running. Because once again, folks like you make this whole thing possible. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And apparently we are YouTube featured this evening. Apparently, according to a lot of subscribers in the chat, apparently we are featured as of right now. So we are honored, of course. It looks like we are currently one of the biggest live streams on the topic at the moment. So we're very honored, of course, as always. But moving into our next super chat here, this one goes to Ella MC Wills Napa, who puts an $40 support, and a huge shout to Ella for also supporting the channel once again. And Ella said, cheers. Beyond thankful for everything you guys do to provide top-tier news coverage, whether it be at the usual time or out of the blue like today. And LLTLSA, slum Ukraine, and take one from the chat.
And long live the least Brigamians, and we will make sure to take one from the chat. But I gotta say, a humongous thanks to you for the incredibly kind words and really enjoying the coverage and wanting to support it. We are incredibly honored and flattered to hear people say such nice things about the channel. We try our best every day to make sure the news is of high quality, of sound coverage, and is supporting American and Western interests, but also making sure to not become propaganda, but to actually report the news as it is coming out. I've got to say that we're entirely honored and greatly appreciative of folks like you supporting the channel and helping this thing keep running. And so before we get that live chat here, we actually have some breaking news coming out. So what do we got?
Okay, so we have some decent breaking news here. Also, we will not forget about Ella's live chat question, by the way. Don't let us forget that, folks, if we happen to miss it. But we are seeing here that let me make sure I've got all this stuff right here. Because there's some more stuff coming out right now. So we are hearing that apparently Iran has closed its airspace in the western part of the country. We did report that already, but we now have a graphic showing exactly how much of it is closed. Literally, I would say about 70% of Iran's airspace is closed. So when they said the western part, they meant literally almost the whole country, based on this graphic right here. So that's pretty big news. Also, we are hearing as well that apparently that it is Iran, it is the IRGC that is currently attacking the Iranian Kurdish opposition, which are U.S.-backed forces, by the way, in northern Iraq. Let's take a look at the very short video.
I get it on the money.
I am checking for
There's
updates
the
here.
incoming missile, I believe. I'm not really sure on that, but there's a glowing thing up there, and that might be one of the incoming missiles.
I tell you, man, it seems a little bit strange to me that for Iran to be completely down and out of missiles, that they're wasting missiles on the Kurds after they just got done attacking Israel. It seems to me like they've got some stocks left in their bunkers.
Man, it sounds to me like a lot of our reports that we were given initially were accurate back then too, because I remember telling everyone, I was like, they got a lot of capabilities still intact. Like caving in a tunnel entrance doesn't mean that everything inside of that tunnel was destroyed. And many people, folks, wanted to say that we weren't reporting.
Our viewer Todd McCartney thinks there is absolutely no way Israel won't respond. They have to respond no matter what President Trump says.
I think we're all getting the idea, folks, that taking the president's word in any amount of value, even face value, is a pretty bad idea, because going off of his words, the Iranians literally had no teeth to fight with,
President Trump,
and yet they're firing missiles at everybody right now, everywhere, and it doesn't really seem like they're running out of the mouth of launching capabilities or missiles to launch, for that matter, at the moment.
I hope you all appreciate that, folks. We get non-stop flack from people, like not from our longtime channel viewers, by the way. Like we appreciate the constant support from our longtime channel viewers, but we get a lot of flack though on Twitter, YouTube, etc. for going against the official narratives to tell the truth about the situation. Most people blindly believe whatever they're told. Like that's just the way it works. So when we try to report the news accurately, no matter if it goes with the U.S. narrative or against it, we get some bad pushback from that.
The stock markets are open? What,
So
the
we say
American stock
we tell the
market?
truth regardless of what the
American
pushback
stock
is,
market
and
doesn't
then
open
once again it
until
turned out to be
tomorrow
accurate. It comes out, of course, later on down the road after we've been beat down with a stick. It comes out later that it turns out it was accurate news that we were reporting. But also, by the way, we do have some more breaking news as well.
The oil market is
Apparently,
open in
we have some more
25
details
minutes.
about how big the attack was on Israel.
Oil market
We're getting
25
some preliminary information that around 25
Israel stock market is open
missiles
on
were
Monday
fired
at
toward Israel in tonight's attack. That's 25 of them, by the way. We'll do some research on that missile in just a minute to get some details about it. But apparently, 4 of them failed, but the rest of them, about 21 of them, reached the Israeli airspace. So, unfortunately, what can you tell us about that missile? Is it an MRBM or an SRBM?
Well, this is actually a very interesting question, because the Khyber Shikan missile is actually, as a matter of fact, not listed on any of our charts about any of the missiles that we know of.
Thanks Old School Gaming, thanks Israel Bishop.
What the hell's going on here? Let's see here.
Israel Bishop thinks Arabs set up and provoke Israelis into preemptive strikes, then accuse Israelis of starting it up for at least 60 years.
I do have some information about it. It's a medium-range ballistic missile. The Khyber Shikan is.
Thanks
It was
Christopher
unveiled in
Severs,
2022,
who says
so
flight
it's a
radar
newer
shows
missile.
that
It has a
Stratotank
range
just
of
took
about
off from Tel Aviv.
1,450
Well, I mean,
kilometers,
we've
or
been
about
seeing
900
tankers
miles. So
take
it is
off from
definitely
Tel
an
Aviv.
MRBM by definition.
I'm
So
checking
it
nonstop.
appears to be
Throughout
solid
the
fuel.
ceasefire,
It's
I see
apparently a
there
more
is
lightweight MRBM. So that apparently is an upgrade to it. It's a newer missile.
I'm assuming
But
to
it appears to
maintain
carry a warhead on it of about 550
aircraft
kilograms, which is a pretty decent warhead size on that thing. So they've apparently fired 25 of them, and 4 of them failed, according to the report. So it appears to work. I mean, if only 4 of them failed out of the 25, and that's obviously not great, but it still worked.
That's like an 80% success rate, or something along those lines. So
there's been numerous.
that's not too bad. I mean, like there's about Russian launch rates of like 20%.
And I assume the U.S. is keeping aircraft up.
I guess these are somewhat semi-effective missiles if we're looking at it that way. But
thank you so much, Christopher Severs. So I don't know what's going to happen.
The Iranians are still blaming the U.S. and just using the same
I'll
line
keep an eye on the
prior.
accounts that
They've been blowing up boats and whatnot,
close
is what they're blaming the U.S. has been doing. So therefore,
I haven't seen any of them.
the U.S. is really responsible for what's happening. So the Iranians are now making
Very
colorful statements. They're trying to drag the U.S. into the current situation that is specifically just Iranian Israeli, and the U.S. is trying to stay out of it, and now the Iranians are making statements that are trying to drag the United States into it. So, well, man, stuff is just collapsed right there. I think we're getting a pretty clear notion here that the Iranians are trying to make sure that the U.S. will be dragged into this thing, hell or high water.
Yeah, I would say so. It definitely seems that way for sure. Also, we did get corroboration that apparently that was the type of missile that was fired as well. That talking about that missile that we just looked at a second ago. That is the tail end of it that we saw crashed in southern Syria. So that was apparently one of the ones that failed. It apparently fell on Syria. Apparently this night. So that appears to be the case. But in the meantime, though, that appears to be all the breaking news we're getting right this second. So we're back to a lull where we can get back to super chats while we wait for support news to come out.
All right. And so with that, folks,
N12
it's time for us to get on into the next
that Netanyahu
So our next one here goes to none other than Brian. Oh, actually, hold on a second. Actually, we need to get that live chat for Ella first.
Oh, yeah.
But the live chat question in honor of Ella Super Chat goes to 9P Stevenson, who said, what would happen if the U.S. ended up recognizing Taiwan as a country in the midst of these exercises?
It would end up creating significant escalations because that would be going against what we've actually declared in foreign policy. There's only one China, and we recognize Communist China as the only China, but we recognize Taiwan's sovereignty on their island, which is the caveat which allows for Taiwan to exist. So I would say, in my honest 2 cents, in my opinion, that would probably be a pretty bad thing. We kind of want to keep China in a bit of a foreign policy limbo, and we seem to be in that limbo by saying the Communist Chinese are, the real China, but we recognize the sovereignty of the Republic of China's government on the island of Taiwan, and any efforts to change that situation, we're going to respond in force to support the sovereignty of the Republic of China's government. So I would say that it'd probably be a pretty bad outcome. It would lead to immediate escalations and possibly a conflict, and we are really wanting to avoid that right now because we're pretty tied up in the Middle East and we don't want to start a whole other second war and really stretch ourselves exceptionally thin trying to also fight the Chinese as well. So I hope that does address that the best I can, and a big thanks to you for sponsoring a live chat, Ella McWheels NAFO, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have here a support from Brian Falgiano, and thank you very much, Brian, for the 20. And he said, thank you incredibly much for the continued dedication to determine and report the truth in the era of lies and promoting self-interest.
And I gotta thank you so much for the support, Brian, and enjoying this channel. And I gotta say that we try our best to keep the news as level-headed and pro-American as we possibly can, trying to balance the two together. And I hope that we've been able to make sure that is once again the case tonight with this coverage. So a humongous thanks to you so much for the support. I hope that has addressed it incredibly well. And with that, we're on the next one.
Also, a big shout out to Terry Murphy. As Terry Murphy said, keep up the great work. And
that's what he said.
And I wonder what the
I don't know what he actually did, and I don't know how.
And I wonder. I can go check that real quick. Let me go check and see what it looks like. Let's see here. So let's see what we got going on here. Let me see if I can spell the word pizza correctly. There we go. It's a bit of a struggle to spell these days, but it does appear that right now, at this very moment, there's really not much happening on the pizza index from the looks of it. It's reporting normal average traffic from what I can tell.
Interesting. Generally, I would say, folks, in my opinion, I don't find that to be a reliable indicator of anything anymore. It seems to me, like, in my honest opinion, it seems to me like the pizza index doesn't even relate or correlate to anything anymore, so I don't really count it as a reliable indicator of anything. So, with that, we're on the next one.
Also, it is in the middle of the day, too, so I'm not sure, like, usually they order pizza, it's usually, like, closer to, like dinner time, like at the Pentecost. So, it's also right in the middle of the day right now, so, I mean, unless they're, like, eating early or something like that, like they needed a quick snack, I'm not sure if they'd be ordering heavy right now, unless they just need a snack. But anyway, so moving into our next one, this one goes to Terry. No, actually, this one goes to Old Oliver. And thank you very much, Old Oliver, for the support. They said, how do you think history books are going to frame the geopolitical situation of the current situations that the U.S. is taking in Iran and the Ukraine war? And do you think they will have quantum messaging in the index, LOL, and LOTE LSA.
They probably will have quantum messages in the index as some sort of a cheap gimmick that was tried during our era that didn't work out, I would assume, because I think the whole quote-unquote quantum messaging thing is being worn out so fast in the Middle East that it's not going to have any longevity as a form of misinformation, basically, from any government official. Also, I would say that this whole foreign policy era for the United States over like the past 40 years is going to be described as an absolute mess, because the U.S. has been very weak, indecisive, and largely incapable of representing its interests or its sphere of influence interest in most areas of the world. And so I have a feeling that this era of history is not going to be looked at fondly. If anything, it's going to be looked at a lot like the appeasement era in Europe leading up to the Second World War, where it's looked at as something of a joke. So I hope that does address that the best I can, and big thanks to you for the support. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have here a support from Harold24 who put in a 20, and Harold said, appreciate you guys.
Is it 6 p.m.?
And I gotta say, a big thanks to you for support, and thank you for appreciating this channel. We try our best, and although we only have some success, I hope that it's good success. So a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best we can. And with that, we're on the next one.
Stock futures.
We also have a 10 from Bruce Jenner, last name Tomes, and they said, I'm also tired of paying for Middle Eastern
About
wars.
15 minutes from
Yeah, I will say, like, I'm not one of these people. I know you're not meaning this, by the way, because I'm familiar with what you think about the situation. But I'm not okay with just like lumping money in places with no like end result in mind. I'm not okay with that. But if it does advance American interest, I am okay with it. That's why I've generally supported Ukraine being funded to a large degree, because when we fund Ukraine, we're largely sending them old, outdated equipment, and then we write it off on our books as an expense being sent to Ukraine, and we count that toward the dollar value of what Ukraine's being supported with. So that, in my opinion, advances American interest. It keeps Russia off of NATO's doorstep. So I can see that being a decent expenditure. But when it comes to just like, loading money into the Middle East, especially right now, I mean, we're putting money into the Middle East right now just to simply reverse the damage that we caused by leaving the Strait of Hormuz wide open and let the Iranians take control of it. So at this point, we're in a deficit in the Middle East. We're trying to spend our way out of the situation, and it's costing a hell of a lot of money to supply these Gulf states with interceptor missiles and things like that. It's costing a lot of money to do that. And right now, we're not really gaining anything out of it. We're trying to dig ourselves out of a hole we created. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that I would agree with that to a degree. But at the same time, though, like Matthew's saying, I'm supportive of
Here is
wars that have
something
a
from
reason,
Iran's
but I'm not supportive of something that has no purpose or no reason or
missiles
no actual goal.
against Israel.
If we go into a war, we have to have goals and we have to be willing to follow through with and if you go into a war with that kind of a mindset where our goal right now was to overthrow the Islamic regime, I strategically defeat the Shah war, and that was the goal, and we're stuck with that, then I would say that this all has merit to it, and there's a reason to fighting the war. However, if we're fighting it like we have been right now, to where we say that, totally follow through on the war, waste a whole bunch of precision-guided munitions, billions of dollars, tens of billions actually, to make it absolutely nowhere, and now we sit around right now and pretend like everything's fine, although U.S. soldiers are getting shot at and dancing, because of the bullets being fired at their feet every day. I'm not really a big fan of that, because it was basically a waste of time and a waste of money, and it got us absolutely nowhere. I'm not one of those people, though, that live in this false world. Like, I find this argument to have a million fallacies to it. Why are we spending all this money on these foreign wars? We can spend it on the homeless and the veterans. It's like, well, it's like, when does that ever fix anything? Like, I gotta just be legitimate here and actually say that it doesn't matter if we screw ourselves over globally to go give a little bit of extra money to the homeless and the VA and whatnot. Do people not realize that no matter where you are in the world, there's homeless people and there's people who aren't treated well, and like screwing ourselves over strategically to try and fix something that clearly, no matter how hard we try and work at it, will never truly be fixed 100%. That's kind of that's a false fallacy that the whole argument's built on, so that way we can try and make an argument that we screw ourselves over globally to try and fix something that we won't be able to fix. You know, like homelessness or poverty or, you know, the veterans being treated wrong. You know, it's like, that happens in every country in the world.
Why has Trump become such a weak leader?
That's a management problem. That's not a money problem. It's just a management problem. Yeah, like the U.S. is infamous for like throwing money like by the truckload at problems. But the catch is though, I mean, you can throw as much money as you want at a problem if you don't have proper management. Like for example, a good example is nonprofits these days. Like we try to pick nonprofits here on the channel that we fundraise for on Sunday nights that generally use their money properly. But there is an epidemic of like, you know, for example, homeless nonprofits here in America that will spend like a small tiny fraction, like maybe like 10 or 20% of the earnings they get from donations on actually fixing a problem, and then the rest of it goes to bloat from the actual organization. That's the way the government also operates now too. Like a lot of the money gets eaten up in like bloat for the large part, and that's a management issue. That's not a money problem. They're getting a lot of donations, they're getting a lot of tax revenue, but they're not using it properly.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, throwing more money at the situation is not going to fix it. So what's the point of saying, let's F ourselves over globally and turn the United States into a shitty backwater country so that way we can throw a little bit more money at the veterans and it won't do anything because the mismanagement's still there in those organizations because they're not run properly. It's like, what good does that do anybody? It doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't do the veterans any good. It doesn't do the homeless any good. It doesn't do the impoverished or the hungry any good. And it also screws us over geopolitically for the rest of history for no reason. And that's where I get into like pretty mental a lot of those arguments. Like, you know, one podcaster was in St. Petersburg and was talking to the Russian media about, you know, we just need to stop spending money on Ukraine and focus on what's going on back home. It's like, sweetie, I don't know if you understand it, but we're only spending $400 million on Ukraine this year. It's like, that's nothing. Like, that's literally nothing. We spend more on most everything else than that. And it's, you know, ridiculous that, you know, some people say things along those lines because some wars are necessary and we have to fight them. But that doesn't mean that we have to fight every war under the sun, and that also doesn't mean that we can't fight no wars because every war is bad. Some wars are necessary. But anyways, a big thanks to you for the support. I hope that does give my 2 cents on the matter, at least in my opinion. Big thanks to you for the support. With that, we are on and into the breaking news because we actually have more coming out right now.
So we have some breaking news right now that Netanyahu has just entered a high-level security meeting with Israel's senior defense leadership. It is expected that during this meeting that's currently taking place and has been underway for about 10 minutes at this point, he will make the decision to either defy the United States and attack Iran and counterattack, or he will tell the IDF that they're going to hold off. He's going to be making that decision. He's currently discussing it with his cabinet right now, and we don't know how long this is going to take. It could take a minute, depending on how heated the debate is, but we'll have to find out what is said. We are hearing that apparently one of the main fears that Israel has, apparently this is coming out of that meeting, that Israel fears that refraining from responding to Iran right now could undermine its deterrence and signal that it's no longer able to act in its own defense, and that the U.S. can basically prevent it from defending itself. So apparently that's one of the arguments being brought up in this meeting right now, so it sounds like it's going to get heated in there. I'm not sure who's really going to be against the strikes on Iran. I think most of the top Israeli leadership might be simply trying to determine how far can they defy the United States without pissing them off to the point of destroying the alliance. That's probably what they're discussing right now. I think they're all in unison wanting to respond to Iran.
And that is pretty interesting to hear. I have a feeling that, well, I mean, that's a incredibly fair argument. You know, it's like if our country gets attacked and we don't respond because some other country like the U.S. told us we couldn't, what does that say about our ability to effectively deter further attacks and also conduct national defense, which is a pretty solid argument. Like, that's one that can't really be debated. It's quite obvious they do have to respond, that they're kind of forced to in this sort of a situation. And also, in the meantime, we got some footage as well out of Mehrabad airport area of apparently some sort of a civilian aircraft trying to leave.
No,
Civilian birds.
The cameras are not allowed to show beyond the air when rockets and missiles are coming.
Doesn't necessarily sound civilian.
So
it really does. I was going to say it sounds like a fighter jet or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking. I was like, that sounds like a MiG or something. Like, that does not sound like a civilian airliner to me. Maybe they have like 737-200s or something with like the earlier turbojet engines. Maybe, but that also the light array on that thing. You know, commercial aircraft generally have wider wings than stubs like this one has. I feel like this is actually a military aircraft.
Yeah, I think it could be. I mean, the sound doesn't really line up with a civilian aircraft. But you do have to remember, though, that a lot of the aircraft that Iran's using are older engine designs and stuff like that, so they're not the most quiet or efficient. So it could simply be like an older engine that is just simply loud.
7.5 minutes.
Maybe it could be, but something's odd about this, though. Something isn't lining up here.
Why does it look like an X-wing of Star Wars or something like that light pattern?
Well, you know what's interesting to me is that the light pattern looks like it's almost like a mirage or so. Let me go pull up the Iranian Air Force aircraft because I think they might have a mirage or two. Get to their aircraft list first. I'm trying to stall here so I can get the aircraft. Yeah, they do actually have a mirage. They have a Mirage F1. And why I'm saying that it looks to me like it might be a mirage, and let me see if I can get a rear shot of one of these things to where we're behind it. Okay, so this is probably the best I can get. So notice this. This is interesting. Wings on fighter aircraft and stuff. Wings on even the oldest 737s. Let me pull up a 737 here. Wings on an old 737 even are pretty wide. I mean, like the wingspan of a commercial aircraft is about as wide as the fuselage is long most of the time. But on a military aircraft, usually the wings are stubbier than the fuselage is length. And the lighting arrangement here, if you look at it, there's two lights, like a landing gear light and then some sort of a fuselage light. There's then a tail light, and then there's two lights on the exterior parts of the wings. I mean, that looks a lot like a Mirage F1 in the night, with its front landing light on, its fuselage light on, its rear tail light, and then its rear fuselage light, and then its tail lights on. Like, it almost looks like the same setup for a Mirage F1.
Also, this is a post from, they said, civilian bird leaving Mehrabad Airport. That's also lining up with the reports of the evacuation that we've heard about. This is presumably for relocation out of Tehran. We've also seen as well that apparently some aircraft have departed from Tehran on ADS-B Theta, apparently leaving, and they're heading east out of Iran. It looks like they're heading out of Iranian airspace entirely to a large degree, but it looks like there's one aircraft that's not listed, there's one aircraft that's an Airbus A320, and there's another one that's a MD-88. Is currently leaving out of the area. So they all...
Yeah, we were just watching those fights at 60 to nothing. Knock, knock, hey Jamie. Hey, oh, you having some lunch?
Yep.
Nice.
And look what Andrew drew.
What is it?
Look what Andrew drew.
Oh, Andrew drew.
He drew the characters on the beach.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Very neat. I'll let you have your lunch. Papa said you watched those guys fight. Did you see the boxing match?
Yeah, I see that.
That was pretty good, huh?
The skinnier guy won.
What?
He said the skinnier guy won?
What?
The skinnier guy?
No.
The two big heavy set guys. The smaller one won.
The shorter one.
Yeah.
Oh, the short.
Yeah, that was him, yeah.
The shorter one.
The short one won. I was expecting that because that taller guy pushed him all the way in the ropes. I expected the taller guy to win, but the shorter guy did win.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, have a good lunch. That's a pretty cool drawing Andrew did.
Yeah.
Whoever Andrew is.
Look at these guys.
They're going to fight again to close out the middle rounds in round 16. A quick turnaround right here.
You're 13 and 16, so now let's figure that, okay, you're summoned into the battle. You've had a little bit of notice, so how do you adjust to your number being called on relatively short notice? Well, Jonathan Rice, we've seen 4-2, lost his last two. Opened up with 4.
Montoya, meanwhile, making his return to TBL tonight, comes in with a lead left. He competed in the inaugural season in 2023, went 1-5, and now he's back for his hometown team.
Whoa! Whoa! He gave him an awful right.
I was about to
look at him, look back at him. He gave him an awful right.
A rude greeting upon your return.
He's so tired too. He's like the third swing, but he keeps swinging and missing that last one.
He gave him an awful. Whoa!
He's swinging himself out.
Jonathan Rice, the LA Elite, in full control on a Saturday in
I don't think it's gonna last
Whoa.
much longer. He's going out. He's dizzy.
Oh,
God, he's
Stop, stop.
He was still trying to reach.
Jonathan Rice gets the stoppage. It is now 20-0 LA.
Record-setting territory there, and this is Jonathan Rice also learning from something that happened his first fight this year.
Whoa, what a right.
Left no doubt about it with the first knockdown, and there was way too much.
Whoa.
His opponent to have to fill up the Jonathan
Oh,
Rice.
he's stumbling. He's
Pile
falling.
driver after pile driver.
Oh, there.
Jeez, pile driver. Yeah,
At
right.
the end,
Say so.
delivers LA to the rear finals 20-0.
At 1 minute, 53 seconds for the winner via TKO out of the blue corner for the LA Elite, Jonathan
20-0. LA Elite against Dallas.
LA leads 20-0.
You think they'd have one fight of this to win?
Here comes Cowboy.
In the blue corner for the LA Elite, Angel, the Kid Lozano. In the red corner for the Dallas Enforcers, 3-time Golden Gloves champion and Team USA member,
3-time Golden Gloves.
Space Ocean Dyro.
Well, never before in the history of Team Boxing League has a team led 20-0. And LA is in full command as we go to round number 14. Angel Lozano, Abibola Ocean Dyro going at it right here. We just saw Jonathan Rice make quick work of his heavyweight Andres Montoya. Let's go to Rice's fellow heavyweight Patrick Mailano, who's standing by with Amelia.
Patrick, it is such a surprise and a happy surprise to see you back in the ring. Now you're with LA Elite. What kind of brought you back to the team?
I love this. This is my passion. I promised myself when it comes to the water, I was going to take care of things outside of the ring, but LA made an offer that I couldn't turn down. My family went first, so that's where my loyalty is always lying. That's one of my decisions.
And so I know it's been over a year since you've been in the ring. It looked like you got touched with a shot, it woke you up, and then I just saw you just kind of come right back into the magic.
Yeah, so that's
I want to see who wins this one.
It's been a little bit, but I'm right back here.
Put a tattoo on his chest.
I'm home for a minute. They always put on good shows, and I'm always going to show out.
We are definitely looking forward to seeing you in the money rounds and doing your thing once again.
I look forward to it. I love you guys. Love you to my family. Peace.
Justin?
Good to see Patrick Mailano back in the fold. Picked up his 18th career TBO win. And that kept the streak going, Dave, because originally it was announced a win for Dakari Scott.
Yes, and so it looked like it was one win for Dallas. They turned it around, and then Rice gets pointed. Now here's another possibility for Dallas, because Ocean Dyro had 2 wins over Lozano last year. So if you're going to have a shot, you're Dallas to avoid these numbers. This is one of your moments to try and do it.
Yeah, this is the 3rd all-time meeting between Lozano and Ocean Dyro. Ocean Dyro's won 2 of them. Lozano, in fact, has dropped 9 straight rounds dating back to last season. And Ocean Dyro is the fighter who started that streak.
Yes, so if you are saying for Dallas, who's going to break it? This is the guy you think is going to break it. Let's just see if he does.
Coming up on the half-minute mark here. Who's going to come out on top?
Helped Dallas get within 14-12, but in its last match, which it lost, but he was able to win his clutch money round appearance for them. And he's a veteran of this league who's gotten better slowly every year. Always about above average in terms of his return.
Get Chippy along the ropes. It's interesting. It feels like there could be a desperation in a sense with fighter like Lozano where you don't want to be the one who drops the ball at this point.
But you're seeing everybody win for about an hour, and then you come in and, you know, you have a chance, and they're all saying, hey, if you get this, we really have a chance to go further. So, yeah, this is one situation where, for different reasons, both fighters are paying attention to the score as well as what's in front of them.
That tattoo on his chest, it's like those people, I think it's like here, see and speak no evil thing, yeah? One's covering their ears, eyes, and mouth. Like little cherub angels, here speak and see no evil. Get the rhythm of the hot dog, put it all together. Jeez.
LA leads 20-1. Round 15 is in the cruiserweight division. In the blue corner for the LA Elite, Juan Chocho Higuera. In the red corner for the Galaxy.
I wonder if they do this every Sunday. I want to look it up how they do that.
What is that?
Vernon Weber.
With the fighter that
I want to look it up and see. Yeah. Gonna make a cake too. Yeah. It is a good day to make a cake.
And actually thought long term, because clearly this is well over this person's head right now. Like that's not even political to say, it just obviously is. Because with Israel getting directly attacked and then going, oh, that's no big deal. I mean, that's clearly something that nobody would say if they were saying so, or knew what they were actually talking about. But anyways, with that, a big thanks to you so much once again, and we're on to the next one.
Down maybe.
I also have here a $10 support from none other than B. Burns 2, and thank you, B. Burns, for the $10 support. He said, what type of targets are Israel likely to strike?
NASDAQ
they're mostly going to bomb Tehran, and they're probably going to go after a couple of military targets and also energy infrastructure from what we're hearing right now if they start to strike. So that's what we're thinking would be the top 3 targets. So a big thanks to you for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one. We also have a 5 from Master Rash. And they said, do you think that North Korea, China, and Putin are telling Iran what to do to mess with the United States because of the current leadership, Slava Ukraine and Yaroslav and LSA? And a big thanks to you for support, and I have a feeling they're probably telling Iran a couple of things here and there, but they don't have like a direct line of communication to them daily, like, oh, mess with them this way, and like really get them good. It's not really like, you know, like the kind of like practical jokers thing where it's like, you know, tonight Iran is the big loser, and they're like, they got a pet piece on and stuff, and they're like, hey, like put out this tweet. Like, most of Iran stuff is being done on their own, but every once in a while Russia and China will come over and give them like a broader, overarching statement, like, you know, oh, it'd be nice if you did this, or if you made sure to continue this because we have our own things going on, and if you continue it, we'll help you out. And they could be saying stuff like that in the background, but it's not a direct play-by-play, it's more broader sorts of encouraging statements that they're making, most likely also with offers of continued support. So I hope that does address that the best I can, and a big thanks to your support. And with that, we're on the next
by my reckoning,
we also have a 5 from Mark Dixon, and also a 5 from Strong River Flats, and thank you both, Mark and Strong River, for that $5 support, and we do appreciate it. We also have a 5 from the Becca Fly, so thanks for going live, guys, and excellent reporting on the fly, and you are appreciated. Fine, I saw that right there, the Becca Fly on the fly. That's a good one. But I gotta say, thank you so much for enjoying us going live.
No, you can't just read the percentage on the right. It's kind of a strange thing, but you can't just read the percentage up or down on the right.
It's well covered, well researched, and well analyzed, because I would say that today, I feel like the coverage has been pretty decent.
That percentage is not calculated
a huge thanks to you for support. I hope that does address that well. With that, we're on the next one.
Right there.
We also have a 5 from Barry, and thank you for the support. He said, from Polish chef in Sheffield, UK, for the new fund for coffee.
So what we're
handcracker
waiting
and
to see
mocha pot,
is
mine is U.S. made and from steel. And how does electronic warfare work?
So electronic warfare at its basic level, you're using an electronic device on another that's able to project some sort of a interference through electromagnetic I guess you say wavelengths. That's basically what electronic warfare is at its simplest. So you're trying to disrupt the electromagnetic space between one transmission point and the receptacle point of another. That's basically what electronic warfare is at its basics. But there's also a lot of different ways and forms that can be implemented, and also different kinds of damage technologies and actions that can be conducted.
Gold opened as well.
I'm not a humongous expert on how electronic warfare works in great detail. Generally, things that have to do with electronics and also modern-day computer technology is a little bit beyond my wheelhouse in the specifics of how they work, but that's the general, almost textbook definition of how electronic warfare works, or its just basic definition. So I hope that does address that the best I can, and a big thanks to you for support all the way out there in Sheffield, in the United Kingdom, which is on up there. A really neat place, actually, Sheffield. I haven't been there personally, but I'd like to go there one day, because I've always heard cool things about the city of Sheffield. There's really cool pictures out of the city, too. This actually looked like a neat place to go, and we never got to go there, which is a shame. But a big thanks to you once again.
Hey, thanks so much to Alex Stevenson. That's so generous of you, Alex Stevenson, from somewhere in Europe. Thank you so much, Alex Stevenson, for your support of
kind of, but because the only reliable EMP is a nuclear weapon, that then falls into really more so the nuclear warfare category with a secondary impact on electronic warfare. So with that, we're on the next one.
Thanks for subscribing.
Also, we have seen the crude oil futures. We've gotten that information right now. Apparently, it looks like Brent crude futures have opened up more than 3.3% higher than the previous price, and the WTI futures gained over 3.4%. So they are opening up with a bit of a bang, I guess you could say, from the looks of it. Nothing too insane, at least in the context of what we've seen recently. It's not too insane. During normal times, this would be considered wild during normal times, but right now it appears to be a normal swing to a certain degree. So we'll have to see if it increases this bull run right here. We'll see if it increases that. But for right now, it's largely moderate.
They follow.
Interesting.
Stay awake and go to sleep. Because in Israel right now, it's 1:09 a.m. It's 1:09 a.m. in
Israel. The oil will run out, and then the prices will just skyrocket just because of that fact alone. So I guess until then, it's just going to be in this weird limbo land sort of a deal. But with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Jose Arana. Thank you, Jose, as well. He said, when the state of Israel was founded in 1948, 5 countries invaded Israel the very next day, and that tells you everything you need to know.
Question, and I periodically give this response.
There's actually a lot that goes into that.
I cannot have subtitles
historically that's involved with the state of Israel. We can
only
always
way to have subtitles
it down a whole
is
lot,
to
but if we
have
really get into the weeds,
regular
there was a lot going on there.
which will cause a long delay between the chat posts and when I see them.
Before they gave it
so
to the,
given that we have
Israelis.
interaction with the chat, I cannot use the regular latency setting.
The British changed their mind. They decided to partition land equally, half amongst the Arabs, half amongst the Israelis, to try and end the whole situation there. And there's a million things that I can talk about in the formation of Israel that made it a pretty messy affair, and it certainly wasn't peaceful back then either.
I wish we could, but we can't.
If people don't know this from back then, like back in the 1920s and 30s,
Seco says there are captions on Facebook.
Israeli settlers to start pushing into Palestinian land and attacking them, and for the Palestinians to attack the Israelis and try and push them out of the land they were trying to settle, or to push them out of the lands that they had been in for some time that they had bought through the purchase rights from the Ottoman Empire, which is why they were there in the first place. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into that. It's a pretty complicated sort of a deal. And then also on top of that, you have to add in the religious factor as well. You could have put anyone there except for an Islamic group. We could have said, Israel's going to be a Christian state. That would have started off the same war, because it's a religious ideological conflict.
Alexa, volume 5.
So I hope that addresses that the best I can, at least in my opinion, from what I know. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Texas Woman. And thank you very much, Texas Woman, for that $5 support. They said, wouldn't the U.S. Congress have to approve of a re-engagement or a war with Iran?
Well, right now, right now it would require some sort of a vote for the War Powers Resolution Act to see that it's continued. And right now it seems like that might not happen because it seems like there's actually some pushback against the conflict in the Congress. But
Times of Israel
I'm
says
not really sure. Mandy, what do you
huddling
think?
with security chiefs.
There's two different ways: the way it should work and the way it actually works. Let's address the way it should work first. Technically, before this entire attack on Iran started, the U.S. president should have gotten a declaration of war first, but that's not really the way it works in practice. At least in precedent, it's not the way it works in reality. The president, in reality, doesn't necessarily have to get the approval right now. He can just launch an attack on Iran, and that's just the end of it right there. It would be then up to Congress to pass through that War Powers Resolution through the Senate. Then it's going to get vetoed by the president. Then the Senate has to override the veto, and then they could rein in the executive branch at that point. As you can tell, it's a very complicated process and a very unlikely process to succeed. So in reality, even though it should be technically a declaration of war, he really doesn't have to get one in the way it works operationally.
So I hope that does answer the question well, and with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from 2 Days Gone. He said, great group of folks here.
And I'd have to agree. A great group of folks, amazing people in the LSA, and so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that it's addressed that well, and with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 20 from the Nocturnal Overlord, and thank you very much, Nocturnal Overlord, for that support. And they put in a 20. They said, the U.S. is certainly mishandling this mess, but it doesn't help that a former TV host is running the War Department.
You know, I would say that at this point, that's not really unfounded claims. The situation has been mishandled to the extreme. And the reason why I would say that, folks, is working off the last administration. In the last administration, we made the criticisms on air that their weak stance against the Islamic Republic of Iran and their complete lack of support for U.S. allies in the region when dealing with Iranian aggression was an absolutely weak and horrendous position to be in. And not only that, they were continuing to let the Iranians threaten in the future via the Houthis and themselves the Strait of Hormuz and the Bab el-Mandeb, which I brought up on air many times throughout the past few years as significant strategic threats that are posing that need to be dealt with. The last administration didn't deal with that at all, and in fact tried to mitigate the risk by appeasing the Iranians for the larger part, which I said was a pretty bad idea, and now the current administration's doing that as well. And I'd also have to say that a Secretary of Defense that has to go around everywhere, turning everything into a domestic political speech. I don't know if y'all saw, but I believe he was in Europe today, because yesterday was D-Day, the anniversary of D-Day on June 6th of 1944. He went over there to an American military cemetery. Instead of talking about the sacrifice that Americans made on the field of battle across the face of Europe, the Pacific, and elsewhere in the name of liberty and American ideals and freedom, the speech turned into a political one about immigration and rights of certain groups of people in the United States and so on, and didn't even touch on the sacrifice those soldiers made. When you have people like that are in charge, you don't end up getting any sort of reasonable or rational sorts of plans or ideas executed because they're so caught up in this ideological war that they've made up in their head they can't think straight about doing their actual job. But still, a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a $100 support from B. Burns. And thank you very much, B. Burns, for that 100. And we do appreciate
President Trump said today, he will tell Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu not to strike back
but B. Burns said another tougher question. Would the large-scale destruction of infrastructure targets, like, for example, energy, electricity, water, oil, or Karg Island, would that dissuade Iran or simply embolden them?
I have a feeling that right now that I actually probably embolden them. And I'm not really a big fan of hitting civilian infrastructure like power plants, water production facilities, and such things as that, because it doesn't do us any good in the war. It's kind of like how Russia blows up apartment buildings filled with Ukrainians on the daily. It doesn't do them anything to win the war. So what's the point of even wasting a bomb on that? To me, like, that would only embolden them, and also on top of that, it wouldn't make us look good at all to start bombing civilian infrastructure. The only thing I say that the United States should bomb military targets, government targets,
targets and targets of paramilitary groups like the Iranian police and the besieged.
Trump told
Those are the targets that should be hit
after the
destroyed
Iranian
throughout the
missile launches,
Republic of Iran.
it's certainly
Anything
not
else is
going
not
to help
essential, unnecessary, and also
What
would
I would
generally be
suggest
violating
to
the Geneva
Iran,
Convention.
you've shot
So
your
not only is
missiles,
it not
that's
necessary for
enough.
successful
Get
military
back to the
actions,
table and
it
make a
also
deal.
paints us in a very negative light and gives
Asked
a lot
about
of
the
the enemies
earlier
around the world
Israeli
a
strike
great
on
deal of
Beirut, he said,
ammunition
"I'm
to say,
not
look
happy about
at the
this."
evil Americans, trying to
Trump
starve
told Axios
the Iranians and
he
kill
would
them
call
from thirst,
Netanyahu
in this war, and
and
they're
press
not
him
really
to
doing
not
anything to
retaliate.
achieve any success. So I hope that does address it the best I can, and a big thanks to you for supporting me, Burns, and helping this channel to keep it running. But that would be my 2 cents on those sorts of attacks, and I think we should keep them only on military actions. Ukraine's done exceptionally well in the war against Russia with that kind of mindset, and I think that's the best proof to show outside of the Geneva Convention, divorcing the concept from any form of morality. Does attacking civilian infrastructure work versus attacking military targets only? And Ukraine has proven exceptionally well, removing everything else from the factors, that striking military targets only and keeping entirely focused on the strategy of defeating them on the field is the most successful outcome that we can look for. So with that, we're on to the next one. And also, by the way, to quickly address this, I know someone's about to bring it up. I also did actually see someone bring it up just a second ago, actually. Some people are going to say, well, isn't what Ukraine's doing to Crimea by simply, basically cutting off all the supply routes to Crimea, isn't that basically the same thing as what we're arguing against the U.S. doing in Iran or Israel doing in Iran? And it's not the same thing. Because what Ukraine's doing is they're simply cutting off the rear front line supply lines that the Russians are using to support their soldiers on the Ukrainian front. It just happens to be that Russia was stupid enough to use the same exact highways in occupied Ukrainian territory to also supply Crimea because they stopped using the Crimean Bridge. So it's like a side effect. It's not the main reason Ukraine's hitting those occupied highways that Russia's using for their logistics. It's simply an unfortunate side effect of it. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, it's not the same thing at all. We're not in an active front with Iran, so striking anything related to logistics that might have an impact on civilians doesn't do anything for us at all in this war right now. One thing that would, for example, let's say we want to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Does blowing up a power plant knock out the forces that are aiming missiles into the Strait of Hormuz? No. So it doesn't have any direct strategic effect that benefits us in the war. It does deprive a lot of Iranian civilians, for that matter, of electricity, and then that gets them emboldened and enraged, and they hate the United States and they want to support the Islamic regime to continue on the war. And we might just start galvanizing the population in Iran to actually be anti-American if they already don't have that sentiment because they've been indoctrinated into it over the past few decades. So I would generally say it's not a good idea to hit civilian infrastructure inside of Iran.
Although, if it's dual use and then Iran is using it, like for example, let's say for example there's refineries inside of like Iran that are being used to supply the IRGC with fuel for their military vehicles, well then at that point you have a fair argument to hit that kind of stuff at that point. Also, for example, let's say hypothetically, I'm not sure if it really works like this, it probably doesn't, but hypothetically speaking, if there's an electrical facility inside of Iran that is supplying primarily the military bases with power, then you can hit that legally. Like in a war sense, you can hit it. But if it's something that's purely servicing the civilians, like for example the civilians inside of Tehran, you can't just go hit, without discretion, like all the power plants in that huge area, because unless it's proven that it's associated with the military, you can't hit it. And that's what Ukraine's doing inside of the occupied Ukrainian territory. I mean, it's also, by the way, it's Ukraine's territory, by the way. Ukraine's simply striking their own highways that Russia simply took and seized in the war. They're striking those highways to stop the Russians from using that to resupply their troops on the Ukrainian front lines, which that's totally legal. That's not against the Geneva Conventions.
Also, I just saw someone say, no, but the power plants may cut the power supply to radar installations. Well, most radars usually have backup generators if they're stationary, which are able to run for a long period of time, usually a couple of weeks. That's what the supply regiments usually demand. Or it's a mobile radar system which runs on its own diesel generator, so that doesn't really work too well. Because that would be like saying, here in the United States, like if someone went to war with us, well, a hospital in Alabama could possibly take on wounded U.S. soldiers. So at that point, it's really more of a dual-purpose target, because there's guys from the military that show up at the hospital, so let's drop a bomb on it. It's like, well, does that really work? Because then you could start arguing that everything's a military target, because the military just is around the area to some extent, even if they're not using it as an actual military
for a military purpose or a reason. And so we could start justifying blowing up everything. We could say, oh, well, the food stores, well, the military is using that food to some extent. We don't know how much, but, they like grab the sack of flour out of this, flour mill. And so we need to bomb that whole flour mill and deprive a million people of food because there was 1,000 soldiers eating out of it. And you could start going into a giant rabbit hole of making everything a military target because somewhere, somehow, the military kind of touched it. And at that point, you're trying to balance how much is
I'm seeing a new report here, and I'm trying to pull that up.
Military using it.
So
and
give
if
me
the
a quick
civilians are
moment
using the
here.
installation either
Give me
to
a
half
quick
and half
moment.
or more than half and half in
I'm
their
going to pull up a new
favor,
report.
that's generally
I just need
not
a second.
called for an attack.
Hang on.
You try and hit things that are mostly used for the military or are solely for the military. And then on top of that, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to hit the power plant. If we're saying that knocks out the radar stations, wouldn't it be a lot easier for us to just bomb the radar stations themselves and knock them out without causing more damage and impacts for the civilian population in that country? And it won't do us any favors to piss off the civilian populace either by bombing out their power plants. But we actually have breaking news coming out at this moment right now. So what do we got? Okay, so it sounds like the U.S. President has made a statement to the Financial Times, at least according to a Twitter post that we're seeing here from Flytex News and OSINT Technical. Here's what it says. It says, the U.S. President tells FT that Israel would have no choice but to accept whatever deal the U.S. negotiates with Iran, quote-unquote, and this is allegedly, of course, according to FT. They said, allegedly, he won't have any choice. I call the shots, says the U.S. President. I call all the shots. He, meaning Netanyahu, doesn't call the shots. So apparently, I guess sounds to me like the U.S. is basically telling Netanyahu, you'll do as you're told or else. That's basically what they're telling him at this point. So that's pretty bold right there, I will say. Kind of bold to say that in the midst of their country getting attacked by Iran. A little bit wild to say that. Basically saying, if the U.S. President says he wants to let Iran attack Israel, then Israel will shut up and accept it. So that's a bit of a wild position to take right there. I have a feeling that the Israelis, when they're very strong-willed, of course, I have a feeling they might not tolerate that very much. But Enforcer, what say you? I have a feeling that's not going to be taken all too well, but that seems to be a continuation of the U.S. foreign policy position of if I say jump, you say how high to every country we have any dealings with in the world. Because that's how we've been treating everybody for the past year and a half, and it looks like we're still going to keep doing that.
All right.
This is how you end up losing allies, folks. Just telling them you can, like if an enemy blows you up and we just are inconvenienced by you responding, you won't respond and you'll be happy with it. That's a pretty crazy sort of a take right there, if that is actually what was said. I gotta say, that's a wild position to take right there. It really is. I'm not really sure. Like, if I was Israel, I wouldn't take too kindly to that personally.
Okay, we have a new report about what Trump said from Financial Times.
He said, "You're my bitch," basically. That's what he said.
Financial Times
says, I'm like, man, the man. I'm not sure if that's a good thing to tell another person.
But to accept
also, by the way,
the U.S. deal with Iran, because the U.S. President
calls
the shots.
So when statements like that start getting said, if it's true, of course, it's according to the FT. When statements like that start getting lobbed around, that's usually when you start having
President Trump told the Financial Times
out to a certain degree.
Netanyahu will have no choice but to accept whatever deal the U.S. negotiates with Iran because the U.S. President, because Trump calls the shots. He won't have any choice. Trump told the Financial Times today in an interview, I call the shots. I call all the shots. He, Netanyahu, doesn't call the shots. Breaking news. Trump said Iran's strikes have not changed his desire to conclude negotiations. It's not going to have any impact on the deal, Trump said.
The political people got to stop drinking the Kool-Aid whenever their guy does something stupid.
He says, we'll see how it ends up. The missile strikes on Israel were attacks that did not kick at all.
But anyways, with that, hope we've been able to address that well. Apparently that's the U.S.'s position. And with that, we're on the next one. And our next one here, also, by the way, I saw someone mention it. The story just came out yesterday that Israel was allegedly caught spying on the top U.S. leadership about what they were doing with the deal with Iran. So I gotta say, I think honestly, everybody always talks about this current leadership in the United States is always bowing down to Israel. And it's I don't know, this might be the leadership right here that ends up ending the relationship with Israel possibly. I'm not sure if that's going to go that far because of course Israel has a lot of pull here in the United States. I'm not sure if it'll actually go to that length, but this is as close as it's coming. I don't even think the last administration came this close to a fallout with Israel as it's getting right now.
man, I mean, I haven't seen anything like this before.
So Trump told the Financial Times.
Netanyahu's a war hero, great guy. He'll do what he's told. He's a bitch of mine. Like, it's like, damn, man, what ain't he?
Yeah, that's one. That's a button right there. Like if you're looking for somebody's hot buttons to push or something like that. That's one thing with the U.S. president. If you do anything that makes him seem like he's not calling the shots, he's going to start going berserk. Like this is the way it's going to be, which usually indicates a personality that's very hard to work with to a certain degree. Some people might call that, and once again, this isn't a diagnosis or anything like that, but some people might call that a narcissist to a certain degree. Say what?
Get him, cancel him, TDS!
But no, that's just the personality type. I mean, some people are minded like that. They don't take any type of what they view as defiance, or otherwise they'll try to destroy whoever the person is that's trying to, quote-unquote, defy them to a certain degree. Some people have a personality like that, and it's a very toxic personality. So, you know, you can take that how you will, but that appears to be sort of like the general personality that the president seems to have to a large degree. But
man, I wonder if him putting his face and name on every damn thing that he can in the government is really one of the indicators for it. I wonder, you know, it's like, maybe, I don't know. Maybe that is true, you know? I don't know. I mean, doesn't he have a kind of odd tendency of putting his name or his face on literally everything? I mean, even for like the 250th anniversary of the country on the 4th of July, instead of having like a celebration of America, he's going to hold a rally for himself on the 250th anniversary of the country. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a decent argument for that narcissist argument. I haven't heard that one before. This kind of shocking to me. We'll have to look into that one deeply.
Yeah, I don't get into all that stuff. I start getting into domestic stuff. I don't get into all that.
Well, I don't get into that either.
So again,
but it's an
this is
interesting
the Financial
question.
Times.
With that, we're on the
They
next
say that they
Our next
spoke
here goes
to Trump. They did a phone interview with
and thank
Trump.
you for that $10 support, by the way. He said thanks for the work,
and thank you
after
so much
Iran
for
fired
thank
the
you for
missiles at
enjoying the
Israel.
work and supporting it, so we can keep this thing running.
They say that Trump told
and with that,
them
we're on the next one.
Netanyahu will have no choice but to accept whatever deal the U.S. negotiates with Iran because Trump said, I called the shots. He won't have any choice. Trump told Financial Times, I called the shots. I called the shots. He Netanyahu doesn't call the shots.
That's actually a pretty good YouTube channel. I've heard that before. And yeah, actually, a country existing relies on other people
Trump told the
recognizing
Financial Times
so the world has to come together and be like, okay, those people do
that
exist.
Iran strikes had not changed his desire to conclude negotiations with Iran. It's not going to have any impact on the deal.
But no one wants to recognize that. It's an interesting sort of reality with that. But that's actually a true statement. But the big thing is to support and help the channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 10 from Smarzik, who said, my Iranian friends are beyond astonished that the USA promised a lot at the beginning and basically backed out and settled. And I told him I don't know what to say except I'm very sorry. Honestly, I'm just sorry. I'm not even sure sorry would cut it at this point because, sorry is not going to bring back the dead at this point, 40,000 of them or so. So I'm not so sure. That's why, I'm not one of these people that believes the U.S. should be like the world police to a certain degree. We should obviously look out for our interests, but I don't think we should be the world police. But the catch is, though, regardless of how I feel about that, if the U.S. makes a promise to help the Iranian civilians out and then we fail to follow through on the promise,
it's not going to have any impact on the deal.
That's not a good look, even if I don't want the U.S. to be the world police. But, Enforcer, what say you?
I would say, yes, it's, I gotta say, not being political here, but the current guy promises the world that he gives basically nothing in return. It's like scraps or nothing, literally. So that's not really that shocking to me that that's the case. Like most politicians kind of do that, but I'd say that this one's currently at the most extreme that I've ever seen.
He said, we'll see how it ends up, but
we're going to get so much money from these tariffs, and then we get like 400 million from
It's one of those things that's been going on for 3,000 years or 47 years, depending on how you count. Again, this is another quote.
And then it's, look, this is going to pay for everyone in America to get a $10,000 check. We're upping the military budget by $500 billion.
That Trump told them
the
Iran missile attack on Israel is, quote, not going to have any impact on the deal. We'll see how it ends up. But the missile strikes on Israel were attacks that did not kick at all.
And then we had to refund it.
It's one of those things that's been going on for 3,000 years or 47 years, depending on how you count.
You basically bet that nothing really happened. But outside of that, it is very unfortunate what's happened with Iran. I would have to definitely agree with that.
And just in case you missed it,
but still,
the Financial Times interviewed President Trump after the Iranian missile strikes on Israel. And he said that Netanyahu will have to accept, will have no choice but to accept whatever deal the U.S. negotiates with Iran, because President Trump says he calls the shots.
Anyway, moving on to our next one. This one goes to
Won't have any choice. Netanyahu won't have any choice. I call the shots. I call all the shots.
In a house or in the
doesn't
house
call the
or
shots.
on the top floor apartment, and what goes up must come down.
Wow.
Generally, with most air defense guns, they're larger caliber, so they have proximity fuse to detonation charges, or proximity fuses on the rounds, which detonate them at a certain point in flight.
Okay, let me take some
after they leave the barrel, they have like a certain amount of seconds before they explode. So generally, it's not safe to go outside when there's any active gunfire. But if there are larger air defense rounds like those being fired, relatively, it'd be best to wouldn't trust, especially if you're Iran. So big thanks to your support. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
Also, by the way, I am seeing here, we don't have a whole bunch of breaking news, by the way, for some people asking, is there anything going on right now? Not really, but I did see something interesting here that apparently just happened.
Arnie says this looks like Iran is calling.
It looks like open source intel is pointing out an interesting fact. Qatar actually issued a notice to airmen closing some of their flight routes within the Doha flight region from today until June the 14th.
Well, I'm guessing this will make a lot of news. I'm guessing that quote will make a lot of news.
Qatar has been attacked by Iran, but it seems interesting though that they apparently did change that 6 hours ago, well before these attacks started on Israel.
What is this? Hold on a second.
About their airspace. Did you see that, by the way?
I didn't actually.
Yeah, that is interesting. It seemed like they got some tip-off from somewhere.
The Financial Times also says that asked what would happen if the deal failed on its merits, Trump said he would consider a commando raid on Iran.
I wonder how that's coming along. I wonder if that's going to be, delivered soon. Because, that is really interesting that they did get a tip-off. I'm not saying anything here. I'm not trying to say that, that's related, but it is really interesting. They're the ones giving us the jet, and then they look like they got a little bit of a jump on the whole thing. That's interesting.
He said, I think the deal is going on. We'll see what happens.
Apparently, the oil price, the WTI crude,
but
in the United
asked
States
what would happen if any such a deal failed on its merits. Trump told Financial Times he would consider a commando raid on
$90 a barrel, and now it's up to about 94, just about from the
Trump
looks of
said
it. So it looks like it's actually going up.
If the deal fails, possibly we could go in and take care of the rest of the places that we didn't take care of militarily.
It's kind of hard to tell with the
Or
oil
it
price.
would just mean we would keep the
blockade
blockade on Iran.
These days, which is
He
highly
said because
unusual.
the blockade has probably been more powerful than any attack that was ever made on that country.
Now it jumps around like crypto, so we'll have to see how it works out.
Yeah, that's interesting right there. Very interesting. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 10 from Godzilla, who said, have you heard the rumors about the U.S. Maybe using the Taliban for intel in Iran?
I haven't heard about that, so...
I don't think they would help us, I'll be honest. I don't think they would. Even for money, I don't think they would. I did hear that apparently Israel had put some people in, I think it was Azerbaijan or something like that to collect intelligence. They would send agents into Iran from Azerbaijan, and at least that's the report out there. But I don't think the Taliban are helping out. I think they would probably give us the middle finger, probably.
Yeah, especially after we threatened to bomb them to try and get back bomb. I think that soured the relations to the point most of the Taliban guys probably wouldn't be willing to work with us. So I hope that is addressed as the best I can. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 5 from Mamba Mentality, and thank you for the support. They said, as much as the U.S. wants it to look like we
again, according to Financial
Times, or nothing's going to happen, buddy, it is, and we kind of are, and it's best to just go for it and get the situation resolved.
That's what I'm thinking, Mama Mentality. I completely agree with that. We ought to just get the thing done and over with. When you get into war, you gotta be in the war. You gotta finish it. Whether you win
according
or
to
you
the Financial
Times. And right now we're on
Times,
the path to lose the war, which is no
Trump
good.
said to
we
them
want to
that
win.
if an Iran
and so
deal failed,
for all the people out there who say that we're
possibly it would mean possibly we could go in and take care of the rest of the place that we didn't take care of militarily.
What we're trying to argue is to change the situation to where the war can
but he
be
said
won,
they could also
just like Mama Mentality saying. So I completely agree with that. And I gotta thank you incredibly for the support and helping this channel to keep it running, Mama Mentality. You've been around forever, by the way. Huge thanks for you for still being here and enjoying the channel. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have here a 5 from Kingside, and thank you very much, Kingside, for the 5. And they said, why did they use expensive aircraft and cruise missiles instead of relying more on low-cost drones as seen in Ukraine? And the Kingside said he would swarm the IRGC with them.
Well, generally because the U.S. doesn't have a lot of those, unfortunately.
Well, not a
lot.
Maybe the stock market will like that he's saying that it's not up to Netanyahu and it's up to him.
I mean, they could, but those are the ones they have at their disposal. They could simply produce more of them if they wanted to use them. I just don't think there's a desire to use those in large numbers. I think it's a bit of a mindset problem.
Yeah, I would agree. But a big thanks to your support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 2 from Ballistic Computer, and thank you as well for that support. And also a 2 from Agent Orange, and we do appreciate you, Agent Orange, for that support. We also have a 2 from Lethal Latin, who said, Israel, leave USA.
Israel.
Well, I thank you for the support, and with that, we're on the next one.
And we also have a 2 from SCR, who said, IRGC super savage.
Sky News Arabia
no thanks,
just
LSA.
Thank you for the support. Now, we're on the next one.
If Netanyahu has no choice but to accept a deal with Iran, I am the one who makes the decisions.
It's not like you're distracted from me. I was like, dang man, it's not like you're over there reading something on the side or something. But our next one goes to Tuxedo, who puts it to and said, if they get control of Hormuz, we're all screwed.
C14 News Israel. News Israel Channel 14
and I'd have to say,
is currently also talking about. They just posted
they do have control over it.
About the Financial Times interview.
I hope that does address that well. And also, I saw someone say something here, Mandy. This one's important. This is a rules thing. So
I-24 News English Israel also just posted about Trump saying, "I call all the shots, and Netanyahu will have no choice but to accept whatever U.S. deal the U.S. makes in
Iran." And we kind of set our own rules and enforce them here on our channel, like everyone else does. YouTube has its rules of what we can't do. But we have our own rules of what people can and can't do.
GLZ Radio Israel Military Radio News. They are now posting on the Financial Times article as well.
A partnership that's running this live stream. So
Channel 13 News Israel is also posting about the Financial Times interview as well.
And thank you, B. Burns, for the support. He said, I just want to
Channel
say
12 News Israel is also posting about the Financial Times interview as well.
And they don't take crap from anyone. And the U.S. has
Bahrain News in Israel also posted about the Financial Times.
If the U.S. doesn't want to be involved in it, then step out of the way and let Israel do what they need to do instead of bossing around sovereign countries and telling them what the hell they're supposed to be doing. It's like, what if we're saying that we're just going to sit back and let the blockade
so this is getting a bunch of coverage
and let Israel do what it's going to do. It's not like the
a lot of the major news channels.
But unfortunately, what say you?
I would have to say I would agree. Like I gotta say, where in the world does the president get off with this idea that he has the right to tell other sovereign nations what they can and can't do? Like I get into a sense that we provide weapons to them, and if they're in the similar lines, we kind of get a little bit of a say. But where the hell does the president get off with this idea that he has the right to tell everybody in the world because he's the president, which is just a high-end civil servant, what they can and can't do from their own elected governments, from their own positions of their own national security
Times of Israel just posted.
I don't even understand that. That's a ridiculous sort of a notion. If I was the president, I would never even imagine that we had that ability.
The top article right now, 4
what we
minutes
do,
ago.
folks, is
Trump
we say this kind of stuff to these countries,
won't have any
and they get
choice
pissed
but
off and
to
go, you know what, we're just not going to
deal.
work with the U.S.
I called the shots.
They're not
this is
tied
getting
to us.
wide
Israel isn't even tied to us. So even with how much military support we give them, they can just pack up and walk away, and there's nothing we can do to stop them. And so it's like you don't tell people they can't just pack up and walk off if they want to. That you can tell them what to do, and they just got to shut up and take it. Because it's not like there's anything you can do to them that would stop them. And also, if we try to do something, Israel does have nuclear weapons. I'm not saying it get to that point. But there is a point where you can push them hard enough or try and start curb stomping them, and they might nuke you. And then you're kind of stuck there once again in a whole roundabout thing. You really can't tell them what to do like that.
He did an interview with the Financial Times in which he told them that Netanyahu of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu would have no choice but accept whatever deal the U.S. negotiates with Iran,
politicians have had their
because President Trump said he calls all the shots. He said, Netanyahu won't have any choice. I call the shots. I call all the shots. He, meaning Netanyahu, doesn't call the shots.
Right? You just made this 100 times more difficult than it has to be?
Taylor, write my name, please. I go to work. That's my name. 1024-1993, Alicia Taylor. Can you please run it? Please, I'm late. You're wasting my time. Yes, I am. I just told you.
What they will say. And I don't think the law's goal is to say, no, stay silent at what you're feeling or thinking. That's not what the provocation is all about.
So what is Israel going to do? I mean, obviously,
it's not in response along the way.
Face some
and here,
domestic
the other, the victim,
to Iran
initiated
Israel,
this.
But
so that's why
Trump
provocation
said
is inapplicable.
He does not want
the
Israel
sole
responding.
focus should
So
be
how is this
on whether his use of, did he know he was using deadly force? And did he have a reasonable basis to believe deadly force was about to be used against him?
About whether Israel
that's what I don't
respond.
understand is why is the prosecution trying to prove something it doesn't need to prove to secure conviction? And going someplace that's like whether it's playing into a social media narrative or something else, it's unnecessary and counterproductive. In fact, because I mean, if the jurors ultimately conclude that it is about just provocation, yes or no, then he could get acquitted. So it's a stupid strategy by the prosecutor as well. And I think part of it is they want to make the victim, appear completely innocent. This is a typical prosecutorial path. That they want to make the victim was purely innocent, innocent as driven snow, didn't do anything wrong. No, the victim committed a crime. The victim committed a crime of assault. He was physically assaulting this individual. Did not have a legal basis to do it at the time. But hey, he was just a kid. So that'd be something you get probation for. But that's how you take it out of the provocation. You say this kid flipped and stabbed a kid when all he did was get pushed. And I mean that's the story as far as I can tell. What the prosecution should be telling.
I can anticipate the chat going crazy on suggesting Metcalf committed assault.
I don't think committed assault. No, I'd say at worst. How did that commit assault? Well, what's his self-defense? The kid's sitting there and he's feeling attacked by being sitting there? It's disingenuous and dishonest for people to
join the overtime stream and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also, when these kind of fights go down and somebody gets badly hurt or somebody gets killed, both actors screwed up. Somebody usually screwed up a lot worse, but both actors screwed. This kid screwed up. He went up and pushed him. He had no grounds to physically hit him. He had no grounds to do so.
By the way,
I say at worst.
There's been no evidence whatsoever that he had a legal right to physically remove him from that place. He's a student.
All over the place. Iran's a proxy for China and Russia against the West. Then Ukraine's a proxy for the West against Russia and China. And Taiwan could be the next proxy.
That's what I mean. It's a small minor league battery case.
But unfortunately, what say you?
But the prosecutor is so obsessed with this kid's got to be perfect. He has to have made no mistakes, the victim, that he has to pretend that he was provoked into doing that. And it's like, come on. When you try to push too far, when you try to go too far, you not only open the door for potential acquittals, you also create public controversy where there doesn't need to be any.
Apparently we have during some sort
President Trump
so my view is he's guilty of, is likely to be convicted, and he's likely guilty.
Let the U.S. figure out
Maybe of second-degree murder if we hear more evidence. I'm curious why a kid with no history of violence suddenly flips.
That's tomorrow.
I mean, this is not normal. Because that's what they're going to do in the end. Under the context of the racial controversy and the racial dispute that they will be placed, that we haven't got an honest valuation as to what causes it. Why is he carrying that knife in the beginning? When he doesn't have a history of violence, he's not doing it.
There will be
That tells me, why did he say, I feel like I'm a nobody? Why did he say I'm a nobody? This feels like a kid who somehow is, if you look at a lot of the school shooters, one of those common things that's common, they just know
fine from the nocturnal overlord.
It's another issue that society just doesn't want to deal with.
So hard.
Doesn't want to address. Is the effect of social media
it really is.
And my guess is,
I guess
this kid has a history of being bullied and freaked out when somebody much bigger than him was challenging
ourselves
and that's why when he gets arrested,
like that,
your hardcore gangbanger, when they get arrested, they ain't crying profusely and confessing.
Certainly. It seems like,
and asking, is he okay?
It seems like it could be.
That is not your typical. He's a kid who panicked, hit the wrong button, lost his head, which means probably some of the government's up to this.
I'm not sure.
But does he, is that a legal defense?
He already has announced that he has launched a campaign.
I think
he has already started a
campaign
to oust Nick
the strongest one on the block is the one that runs it. That's kind of a really.
I'm looking at an article from May in the Washington Post.
Especially it was a moment that everybody could just get up and walk away.
One of my
like,
favorite parts of this job.
Taliban should replace. It's like they're nuclear armed. So they're untouchable, basically. That's what that means.
But
unless we want to end up in the United States, France could sit there and say,
I would have liked more story, but how do you tell that story?
Pressure on
that's absurd. That's just absurd.
He says,
it's not a serious
this is a
moment. It's not that cares about conflict.
Is Israel a sovereign?
Now let's go to the constitutional areas that I would only end up getting. Can you get away with short duration like the
will signal to our enemy
they would rather judge
that the blood of our
everybody
citizens
on the planet like
has been spilled
a lot of them should
Therefore,
just
Israel must
go
act
do their
with
own
strength
thing, or
and
they might go to
effectiveness.
China.
In
You know,
this matter,
it just
we
doesn't
all,
make any
every
sense to
citizen
run
of
foreign
Israel,
policy like this.
stand
Because you don't
together.
end up gaining anything, you end up losing everything. And
Crack
in the
event
meantime,
at
you
a
get to
school
pretend
of
like you're the big
projects.
guy on the block while
And
everyone's
goes
walking away
into
and leaving you
black
alone for
kids.
good. But anyways, with that,
And a bunch of tough
I'm not telling you
physical
that
guys
we're
get
on
up
the
to him
next
and they
one.
think he's going to throw
We
him
also
out
have
and he reacts
$10
by
support
stabbing.
Daniel P.
You
Guy.
know, I
Like that
shared
ever
a
happened?
commentator
He said, I have
for
researched
Channel
the Bernie
14
Sanders
who was
staying
calling
committed
for a
to
strong
covering
Bernie's summarily
response
as
to
objectively as
Israel
possible.
Taliban
This
attack.
might
So
be
certainly,
almost insane.
he does
But all the
make
whites in New York
some significant
cleared that verdict all the way
to
up.
keep running.
So would people
try
feel
our
the same?
hardest to make sure
My
that
guess
we
is
keep
about
our,
80% of people on both sides
we keep
would
our
suddenly flip.
biases pretty clear.
As to
We
who
will
they
just
were
criticize
sympathetic
everybody,
to
no matter
and who
they
they were
are. And I
highly
think that's
critical
a
Not everybody,
thing because these
but
days you
probably
get
about
people
80% or so.
who are
Oh, hold on a
that
second.
everything
I've
one
seen
side
something.
does is
Other places
perfect,
seen
and it's
it
never
live
been
too
done
often
better,
to
and the
know
other
of
side is demon.
That's what
I'll
bothers
tell
me.
you
Like, if
the
I was the
honest
prosecutor in
truth.
this
I mean,
case,
both sides
want to
when you
focus
look
on
at
the
it are
facts,
pretty
not make up legal defenses don't exist. Don't pretend everybody was innocent.
There might be
Walk
some
away.
New Year's
Get to the heartbeat and the reality of it. And we
but beyond
can't
that, I
let
do thank you
people,
so
the
much
reason
for
why we
joining the channel
prosecute
and
people
helping
like
us keep this thing running,
Brother
because
Anthony,
you
we
help
can't
us
have
keep this
people
news on air,
freak
and
out
keep covering
and
I saw an unconfirmed report
and
on
all
so
that.
that
we are
And
on
that's
to
why
the next
the
one.
law is the way it
We
is.
also have a 2 from Plazoth.
But I would make sure
that $2 support.
that there were
And also
black
a 2
jurors
from
on that
David
jury.
Ford, who said, China
On
Coast
average,
Guard, you've
even
been
if
here over an hour. You're going
with about 12%.
China Coast Guard, this is
You'd
Taiwan
expect
water.
two jurors
You know
on
me down here.
I would make
You
sure
know
that I wouldn't want any
suggestions of this channel to keep
or
reading
any
that. We're on the next one.
That the
We also have a 2 from
this was
Lamba
a
Mentality
racially
yet again.
biased
Said,
juror
we
poll against
kneel
the
it to
defendant.
Iran.
And the fact there are other
hand.
Hispanic or Asian jurors does
I
not
mean,
constitute
that's
a
really the only way to
substitute for
look
black
at it. I
jurors,
mean,
not in America.
that we ran
For the
that
black
poll
defendant.
earlier about why people think the U.S. is stolen about the whole situation and
instead,
refuses
this
to
prosecutor
finish
just
the job. And it looks
this
like most people
prosecutor
believe
is
it's under
struck.
political
Usually you only have 6
domestic
strikes.
Wait,
Maybe
I'll find
one
out
more strike. I don't know the
I
number of
guess that's a
prosecutors
decent
strike
explanation
that.
for it.
Now, what
I
did
guess
prosecutorial
doesn't make any sense
strike
otherwise.
is we
But
don't have to
what
have
say
cause.
you?
In the meantime,
On
they're
3
preparing
black
to invade
female
Cuba.
jurors.
to retaliation on
Like, you know,
was, well, they're taking you heard that? That was another teacher on the jury and was like,
You
well,
heard
they're
that?
not
They're canceling like a whole bunch of different
Having
airlines,
been through
cancel all their
this,
flights.
this is
to Cuba
hogwash.
for the
This is
foreseeable future.
pretext.
Oh yeah,
Tattooed all over.
I did hear about that.
If
I
those
was
3
like,
had been
what
white,
do you mean?
they'd be on the jury.
Of course I did. I just
I don't know,
said,
maybe
oh,
that's about that anyway.
You
I've been through this way too many times. I've studied it way too many times.
Yeah,
That judge struck me. That judge let him get away with it.
Yeah,
That prosecutor struck me because they were black. Because he didn't want any black jurors to mess up his PR moment in the sun. Because he doesn't see in the victim a human being. He doesn't see in the perpetrator, the admitted perpetrator, the defendant a human being. He sees a PR opportunity for political advantage. I've been through this too many times, and too much of his trial is riddled with this.
Stopping them from developing nuclear weapons.
He should have been arguing against short opening statements, arguing against short jury selections, arguing against Saturday trials, because he knows how that motivates a jury to think about rushing to the outcome, not deliberation. But that's not all. He's then asking witness after witness, including teenagers, whether they think it was murder, whether they think it was self-defense, something that requires them to speculate on the state of mind that they cannot know of the defendant. That they can testify as to the facts. This happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. They can't give it interpretation. They can't give their lay opinions on legal matters that are either for the judge or the jury to determine, and that are beyond their expertise anyway and anyhow, and they require them to speculate on the mind and the intent of the defendant.
Why? I mean, like,
so I think think they have a case.
That one literally doesn't make any sense.
Defendant is
maybe we ought
likely
to go
guilty
with one thing at a time instead
at
of
least
acting like we're trying to
second-degree murder,
run
but they are so obsessed
you know,
and afraid
what is
of losing the case, with any risk of losing it, that they're rigging it.
Nothing.
So
like,
I am
nothing
saying
at all.
the judge and the
if someone
prosecutor
says, well,
are
they
rigging
raided
the Carmelo Anthony
that was
trial
never,
to get a verdict
any of
that
y'all's
they would
money
likely
back
have
when y'all
got
voted
if
for
they
this guy
wouldn't
with the
bring
slogan "No New Wars." Y'all didn't give a shit about
I think you
Cubans
pissed off a
then.
lot of
So
people
why
in
in
the
the
chat,
world
Robert.
do you care now? Like,
sure I did.
living in
Let me
abject
bring up some of the
poverty
rants,
for
and then we're going to
60
move on.
years,
Because some of them are on
they
this.
can
well,
continue to live in
many of the
abject poverty for the
that
next
bring
10
this are on
years
this issue.
or 60
NK
years
Telephone
even,
Man
if
says,
they don't overthrow
in all
their own
honesty, I
government.
doubt
That's
you
not
tried to
really
kill
our
this happened
problem.
to catch
So,
them hard.
that's kind of my thing here. Why in the world are we going to go and
chest,
get into a
you know
pointless
what's
war when
stabbing
we're in the
the
middle
leg
of
and
losing
severing
one
the
that has
femoral
a lot of
artery,
points
you
to
could
it,
argue is more
and we're not doing that
stabbing
well?
in
It
the
doesn't make
chest
any
with
sense.
enough
But
force to
a big
penetrate
thing,
the
Steve, for
sternum.
support. And
It's-
with that,
it's-
we're on the
it's
next one.
with the intent.
International Fair goes to Jason Lefebvre, and thank you, Roast Jason, for the $20 support, and he said, LSA.
And LSA, and a huge thanks to you for support, Jason Lefebvre. And help with the show to keep on running, because if it wasn't for
Those guys were
we wouldn't be able
really
to make this
criminals,
thing
but he's
possible.
summarily
And with that,
executed
we're on the
some of
next
those
one.
guys.
Well, but
We also have a 2 from Mamba Mentality, and thank you, Mamba, as well. They said, the only ally helping you out on the strike.
Invited inside. Who cares if he is a thug or not? Don't stab people.
Yeah, that's something else right there.
Disagree with you at all in that regard. My point is
these days,
that if you want that to become the message of the jury of the trial, don't frame it as the everybody's innocent inside the tent. Don't frame it. Don't rig the jury
We also have a 2 from Jose
so that there's no
Obama,
black
and thank you,
jurors in
Jose,
the
for
jury
the
trial.
2.
And
He
don't
said,
ask
"If I thought Israel
inappropriate,
controlled
unconstitutional questions.
I mean, they
Let's
definitely
do this
have a lot of
poll
pull.
to
I mean,
opine
sure.
in place
I mean,
of
that's
the
why
jury
I'm
to
wondering,
tell
it's
them.
like, how far is the United States
Basically,
gonna push
everybody,
this?
the
Because
prosecutor,
they
the
have
judge,
definitely
and
a
the
hell
local
of a lot of
authority are saying,
Israel
lynch him, lynch him, lynch him, lynch him, because they've got so mad about it. And I think that that's not how we handle trials in America for that precise reason.
It's a little interesting, but a big thing to your support of that we're on the next one.
I'm okay with life.
We also have a 2 from 123J, who said, fun fact, 1966 Holden's lightning flight happened.
And that is actually true. That's where a lightning mechanic actually ended up taking off an electric lightning without really wanting
Randy Edwards says, for me,
and I think he either landed it or something. I don't know. It's a crazy story, though. But I do have to say, humongous thanks to you for support and help this show keep it running. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that,
I don't like focusing too much on that because that's discouraging people from self-defense.
Alright, so with that, folks, that is actually our last
What are you doing with that gun?
address.
What are you doing with that? You're waiting to kill somebody.
Right now, it's now time to get a couple of live chats. We don't have a whole bunch of them. It's sadly during the breaking news streams, it's really hard for me to keep up with the chat because I'm trying to track the breaking news that's happening. So we have a couple of them, and in the meantime, just to go back over this, by the way, we are seeing that apparently there's nothing major happening in the breaking news right now. Israel has not responded. We're just simply seeing a lot of preparation for something to happen. Maybe it's really retaliation on the Iranians, but we're not seeing it actually play out as of this hour.
I disagree entirely. I disagree entirely. Let's step back to this. He's not demonizing them. They're explaining why he had at the scene. He did. The kid didn't do that at all. The kid started crying, confessed, and asked, "Is he okay?" Does anybody think he brought the knife as premeditation? He went there to murder somebody?
No, I didn't hear that.
That's what I don't like. The suggestion is, are you armed? You're out to murder people. You're dangerous. You're scary. If you ever use your weapon, you must have premeditated. That is an attack on the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. That's what I don't like. I do not care for that one iota. It's fine. No, and what the defense lawyer's doing in trial is trying to explain why he felt his client felt the way he felt. That there was a big size gap between these people. That these people were acting aggressively. That for him it came out of the blue because he had been invited into the tent. So he's explaining, that's the defense lawyer just doing his job. The kid has never done that. And pretending this kid was perfect and innocent, and it was very, it's not the case. The kid who's dead decided to push somebody out of a tent. He decided to do it for whatever reason. He decided to do that. Did that deserve death? Absolutely not. But let's not pretend he was perfect in this. And then that's a mistake they always do. A few days later, remember what happened with the tell a real story.
But I hope that doesn't
This deals with all the ups, downs, and then they held off. Don't make somebody an angel. We say somebody a devil because you need the truth. These kind of cases in between.
And up with the shout to keep it running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to say, long live the Lee Spring Army, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. And so big things to you once again, and we're on to the next one.
Alright, so on that note, let's get into some live chat questions proper right now. See what the live viewers have to say.
If you disagree, use Barnes because it's pretty built on, it's good for your brain, and you want to enough.
Another super chat.
Not tonight, somebody, because we pushed
for the 20-pound support.
Two questions from Barack.
Excuse me, and we do appreciate it very much. And Harold said, in the event of a Russian collapse, what might happen with places like Georgia and Moldova?
He's no legal authority to be in control of that. That's the problem. The problem is assuming Metcalf has any authority at all. He's got zero authority. Zero. Zilka. Nada. There's been no testimony that he has had any such authority. This is at a public place where they have put a school has chosen to put up a tent. That doesn't make the tent exclusively theirs. That doesn't make it part of it. And even if it did, it doesn't make some high school student the enforcer with lawful authority over who gets to be an adamant.
Thanks for voting in the poll over on Twitch.
Moving on, Robert.
Let's go to one that might
So a majority, but still a sizable
minority.
Violent collapse.
John
or
Bolton,
really
actually, this might
calamities,
unify the
and then these governments like
audience
Georgia,
in
Moldova would have to
righteous
step in
rage
anyways to
for
try
what
and
seems to be
stabilize the
another
situation
state actor
and then
getting
reintegrate them,
back
which
to
would be
power.
inevitable.
Although
at
it's
that
costing
point.
about-
So,
Oh, people started
big
voting
things
on
to
it.
We wanted to unify
and
things,
others
but in
well,
case
and for that, we're on the
remind people,
We also have a $20 support from none other than
criminal defense
Smooth
theory.
Spark.
We should transition to the Arkansas police.
We do appreciate
Breaking
it.
news
What's your- what's
update.
your you?
And I gotta thank you for the support.
Well, it's not really big
sparks. Because those sparks
small
can be slow.
news
And I gotta say, a big thank you
Barack
for the support
Ravid
putting in that cyber hippo.
says-
That hippo's got a missile.
Barack Ravid says, so again, what happened
that
today
hippo
is
must be a part of
the
the
US
RTC. But we got that a big thanks to you once again for helping the show and keep on rolling. And with that, we're on the next one.
Also, a big shout out to Notorious CRG who put in A5. And thank you, Notorious, for the $5 support. He said when they use minors, it's safe to be outside. And also, is it safe to be in the house or on the top floor apartment? Those must come down.
A second U.S. official told Barack Ravid, we had no part in this.
Just to remind everybody, the charges strike
No
contact
if it's
whatsoever
an air
with the
defense
victim.
round, which
After
usually has
that,
a proximity
he got
fuse in it, then
released.
it's
He then
kind of
goes
safe,
to
but still not
serial
really.
sex offender.
So I hope that answers that
Charged
well
for
once again.
assaulting
And with that,
Aaron
we're on
Spencer's
the next one.
13 or 14-year-old daughter.
We also have a 20 from Vadim Rosen.
Did Israel attack Beirut tonight?
He says, what happened to that recent story with
Despite
64
President
killed by
Trump's wishes?
Cuba's Coast
Get my daughter out of the back of the truck.
Completely covered
There's
up,
an
like they didn't bring that up ever again.
Spencer, or as a result of
Yeah, I wonder why.
Spencer unloaded.
Probably CIA. That's what I would assume. Because like the way that was brought up once, everybody in the U.S. government literally just shrugged at it and just went, and then it never was brought up again. That's definitely something suspicious. So we don't know actually, but that's what I'm kind of thinking is that it had to be something like, say, a CIA infiltration that failed and it went badly, and then they just covered up the whole thing to make sure that nobody knew.
So there you have it. The sergeant is saying they have the charge of obstructing ID, which he didn't do, and resisting arrest, which we witnessed on this video. This is something that's continuing to happen and continue to grow, and I think with the advent of social media and people thinking they're sharing the correct laws, they're sharing incorrect information with people. And what's baffling is that this young lady said that she was a security officer, and she...
So a big thanks to your support. I hope that it addressed that well. And with that, we're on the next one.
We also have a 20 from Adam McLean, and thank you, Adam, as well, for the 20. He said, because I am sick...
For updates. I am checking for updates.
Highly trained security professionals, and they do a phenomenal job.
Tired of mainstream media failing over and over and over again.
And I thank you for the support, Adam.
7
And I gotta
o'clock
say,
here.
I thank you for appreciating it.
No, not on Sundays.
And
The Wheel of
appreciate that we're
Fortune
able to kind of run
is
through
Monday
all
through
right,
So just to
Friday.
summarize
It's
what's
kind of like
going
how
on.
all those YouTube
Several hours ago.
and developers and directors are
Several
out now
hours
eating out
ago.
Hollywood box office.
Came on
You know,
here
it just
while
really shows that this
Iran launched
even
about
know to-
10 missiles at
drive
Israel.
and
No
higher
major
quality
damage
can be found in
reported.
most
I put a little bit of cinnamon
on
in
this
it.
platform. So a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that it does that well. And with
Alexa,
that,
volume
next one.
1.
Had launched
Also,
at
by the way,
Israel
like if
since
that
early
was like
April.
some sort of like failed CIA operation or
Last wanted to do just for today. June 5th, we're doing just for today, we're going to do the 5th, 6th, and 7th. 2 jumps ahead of death. In Boston, an elderly man stepped off the curb without looking
and was struck by an automobile. Taken to the Massachusetts General Hospital, he died within an hour. When his wife was questioned about his physical condition, she declared that he had never been sick in his life. When they examined him, here is what they found. 1. Healed tuberculosis of both lungs. 2. Cirrhosis of the liver, with all the blood going around by a new set of roads above and below his liver. 3. Chronic kidney trouble. 4. Hardening of the arteries and enlargement of the heart. Yes, despite 4 potentially fatal diseases inside of him, this man was a going concern. He was, for all practical purposes, perfectly well. Much as we may rebel against it, the only thing in life that is certain is death. We are never more than 2 jumps ahead of it. Whenever we live to be 6 or 60, the important thing is to do something constructive with our life while we have it. It is appointed unto men once to die, and after this the judgment. Hebrews 9:27. Supreme Judge of the world, help me to use my glory-given life to bring a knowledge of you to others. At the expense of others, June 6. Charged with sabotaging 3 fighter planes in Dayton, Ohio, a sergeant in the Ohio National Guard was recently arrested by the FBI. I did it so I could get some soft glory, the sergeant explained. He said he cut air hoses, put grease on intake valves, and shoved beer cans in the wheel pockets of the planes, planning to discover the sabotage before any harm was done. The seriousness of the sergeant's crime was brought out by the FBI agent in charge of the case. He stated that the cut air hoses, if undetected, would have caused the pilots to black out. Grease on the intake valves could have combined with oxygen, giving off fumes that would overcome the pilots. The beer cans in the wheel well pockets would have prevented the landing wheels from lowering. Anyone who seeks his own selfish advantage at the expense of others can do far-reaching harm. He will have much to answer for at the judgment seat of God. As long as he did it for one of these, the least of my brethren, he did it for me. Matthew 25:40. O Jesus, help me to do unto others as I would have them do unto me. June 7th. A sore finger. Many years ago, Dwight Moreau, father of Anne Lindenberg, told some friends that Calvin Coolidge had real presidential possibilities. They all disagreed, saying that Coolidge was too quiet, lacked color and personality. Nobody would like him, argued one man. Up piped Anne, the age of 6. I like Mr. Coolidge. She displayed a finger with a bit of adhesive tape on it. He was the only one who asked about my sore finger. There's your answer, smiled Mr. Moreau. So many people are drawn to God because of little things. A single act of kindness, gentleness, or patience will bring new friends to him. On the other hand, it's surprising to see how many people give up their religion because of some mean act on the part of those who are supposed to be close to God. The Christ-bearer must use thought and care in the little things as well as the big. What makes the words powerful? Someone said that was powerful. It's brought you to tears. That's me too. What makes it so? Be ye kind one to another. Be ye kind one to another, merciful, forgiving one another, even as God hath forgiven you in Christ. O my Jesus, teach me always to be kind and loving to others so that they may draw closer to you. Alexa, volume 5.
Really good.
Alexa, play music from 1968.
Playing music from 1968 on Amazon Music.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. All your life, you were only waiting for this moment to arise. Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these sunken eyes and learn to see. All your life, you were only waiting to be free. Blackbird fly. Blackbird fly.
Alexa, volume 1. Someone wants to read A Real Mother Goose. I'm good, thanks. How are you? Yes, hello. Yeah. Page 55. Here sits the Lord Mayor. Pancake Day. Great A, little a, this is Pancake Day. Toss the ball high, throw the ball low. Those that come after may sing high-low. High-low. A plum pudding. Flower of England, fruit of Spain, meet together in a shower of rain. Put in a bag tied round with a string. If you'll tell me this riddle, I'll give you a ring. Forehead, eyes, cheeks, nose, mouth, and chin. Here sits the Lord Mayor, here sits his 2 men. Here sits the cock, here sits the hen. Here sits the little chickens, here they run in. Chin chopper, chin chopper, chin chopper, chin. 2 pigeons. I had 2 pigeons, bright and gay. They flew from me the other day. What was the reason they did go? I cannot tell, for I do not know. You're welcome. Yes, thank you. Alexa, volume 5. Still has to cool a little bit, and when it's done cooling, we get the Hershey's chocolate. The only boy who could ever reach me was the son of a preacher man. Was the son of a preacher man. He was. Was the son of a preacher man. Was the son of a preacher man. Yes, he was. He was.
So at this point, if the suspect is driving in this manner, it doesn't seem like it was a shot.
Man, honestly, yeah, it pretty much is. I would have to say it's not really a good thing, really, not really morally upstanding. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Nam Vet, and thank you very much, Nam Vet, for that $10 support. Yeah, we do appreciate that, by the way. And he must be a veteran from Nam.